Chapter 806. Lin Jun took Sakya's corpse and walked out of the ruins. He stepped on the void and arrived in front of the Palace of Fire. He didn't enter the Palace of Fire immediately. Although he had taken over as the Patriarch, he still needed to meet the people and get to know each other. If he entered the Palace of Fire immediately, it would make people feel bad and think that he wanted to be the Patriarch too much. He stood in front of the stairs of the Palace of Fire. Behind him was the huge World Stone. Under Lin Jun's summons, the people of the Fire Kirin gradually arrived in front of the Palace of Fire. However, these people didn't seem as enthusiastic as he had imagined. They looked at Lin Jun with eyes that were sizing him up, judging him, and even pity. This made Lin Jun feel a little strange. The Fire Kirin didn't have a large population. After all, a rare galactic beast like Kirin was still rare. The entire Fire Kirin only had about 10,000 people. Lin Jun stood in front of the Palace of Fire and looked at the sparse crowd below. He said, "Is everyone here?" The one who answered him was a young man who had talked to Lin Jun before. He seemed to have a good impression of Lin Jun. He replied, "Patriarch, almost everyone is here. Only a few elders are not here yet." "Oh, how many elders are there in our tribe?" "Patriarch, there are 4 elders in our tribe. They are Elder Li, Elder Wang, Elder Sima, and Elder Qin. However, Elder Qin seems to have... he's already dead. Then there are only 3 elders left. The 3 elders aren't here yet." Lin Jun frowned slightly. What were these elders trying to do? Were they trying to intimidate him? The Patriarch had just taken over, and they were already putting on airs. However, Lin Jun didn't plan to make a fuss about it. He had just taken over as the Patriarch. It was better to get everyone's attention first. After waiting for 10 minutes, the 3 elders still hadn't arrived. Lin Jun was getting impatient. He said to the young man, "What's your name?" "Patriarch. My name is Lin Chuang." "Oh." Lin Jun smiled. "That's quite a coincidence. He's also surnamed Lin. How about this? Go and find out what these elders are doing. Tell them to come here immediately." "Yes, Patriarch." Lin Chuang was very happy and was about to leave. "There's no need for that, little Lin. We're all old bones, so it's understandable that we're walking a little slower. You're really a little kid, so impatient." As they spoke, a few elders flew over. Elder Li was in the middle, and Elder Wang and Elder Sima were beside him. Lin Jun frowned. These words were obviously not directed at Lin Chuang. It seemed that these people really did not intend to give him any face. Lin Jun wanted to see what kind of ability they had. Now that he was the Patriarch, if they still dared to be so impudent, Lin Jun didn't mind teaching them a lesson. The 3 elders descended from the sky. They staggered to the front of the crowd and stood in front of Lin Jun. Elder Li sized up Lin Jun a few times. "You're Lin Jun." Lin Jun smiled. "Before you speak to me, shouldn't you call me Patriarch? Then introduce yourself. Did you not see the video of Patriarch Sakya's last moments?" Elder Li choked for a moment. Elder Wang, who was beside him, immediately said, "Of course we saw the video. Otherwise, we wouldn't have come here because of you. But as an elder of the Fire Qilin clan, I want to ask you, do you think you can lead the Fire Qilin clan to rise with your strength?" Elder Sima also said, "That's right. Our Fire Kirin doesn't have a high status in the Galactic Beast Alliance. We need a strong leader to lead us to glory. Although Lin Jun's strength is passable if you're the Patriarch, I'm afraid that many people in the clan are more suitable than you." Elder Wang continued, "In the world of martial artists, strength is king. Lin Jun, you're still young. You still have a long way to go. Why don't you take a break first and return to the Holy Land to cultivate for 100 years? We won't need a Patriarch for this period of time. Anyway, 100 years will pass very quickly. What do you think?" Lin Jun sneered. If he went back and stayed for 100 years, the Fire Kirin would have a new leader by the time he returned. No one would acknowledge him. Even if he didn't want to be the Patriarch, he couldn't lose to these elders now. However, before Lin Jun could say anything, Elder Li, who had just been choked by Lin Jun, said coldly, "Even if the Patriarch passes the position to you, you still need to see if the clan supports you. Those who support Lin Jun to be the Patriarch, raise your hands. How many can I see?" Lin Jun's gaze fell as well, only to see Lin Chuang raise his hand. Other than him, there were only a few dozen people. Seeing this situation, Lin Jun was stunned. Although he had just arrived, there shouldn't be so few people supporting him. Something must have happened that he didn't know about. Elderly sneered. Look, your strength isn't enough. No one will acknowledge you. Do you think you're suitable to be the patriarch? Lin Jun took a deep breath. He knew that at this time, he had to prove his strength, and he couldn't find someone to fight. A patriarch who killed each other wouldn't be supported even more. Looking around, Lin Jun saw the world stone behind him. He lifted his foot and lightly jumped onto the world stone. On the world stone, there was the Lance of Lantis that made Lin Jun so excited. What are you doing? Didn't you try to pull out the lance? If you can't pull out, don't try again. Elder Wong shouted. Elderly pulled Elder Wong. Why are you worrying so much? If he can't pull it out, he won't have the face to stay here. As long as he hands over the Patriarch's golden seal, we can kick him out. If he finds out that the mercenaries are here, he can use his status as the Patriarch to resist. If that happens, we'll all be in trouble. They didn't say anything about the mercenaries because they were afraid that Lin Jun wouldn't hand over the Patriarch's position if he found out. Now that Lin Jun took the initiative to pull out the lance, they couldn't ask for anything more. In their eyes, Lin Jun was struggling. He couldn't pull out just now. Was he going to be able to pull it out in the next moment? How could there be such a thing in the world? So they just calmly watched as a joke. When Lin Jun got on the world stone, he couldn't see anything else. The ancient lance in front of him shone with a faint green light. The rough body of the lance gave people a very reliable feeling. He reached out and grabbed the lance. The lance trembled slightly. Lin Jun closed his eyes and quietly felt it. Within the lance, the 4 elemental flowers faintly appeared. They resonated with the 4 elemental flowers in Lin Jun's body. In an instant, elemental energy flickered on Lin Jun's body. This long spear that had been stuck here since ancient times actually started to tremble and emit a faint buzzing sound. Everyone was stunned by this scene. One had to know that from the day this long spear was inserted here, no one was able to make it sway in the slightest, let alone make it tremble and buzz. How is this possible? The Lance of Lantis actually moved. Resonance. How can this lance resonate with other people? Isn't there a 4 elemental flower in the lance? Without activating the 4 elemental flower's power, it's impossible to pull it out. Lin Jun is a black hole beast, not a 4 elemental Qilin. How'd he do it? The noise below didn't affect Lin Jun at all. After grabbing the lance, Lin Jun felt a trace of soul power. This was the remnant will of Lantis' soul. It was hidden within the 4 elemental flowers. Lin Jun's black hole devoured black bone 2 months ago, so it couldn't devour another soul. So when he grabbed the lance and felt Lantis' soul, he couldn't devour it either. However, Lin Jun wasn't afraid. In terms of soul power, he wasn't afraid of anyone. He also felt that this soul power didn't seem to have any evil intentions. No words, no sound. Only an ethereal shadow circled around the 4 elemental flowers. It didn't want to leave for a long time. Lin Jun also didn't say anything. He silently felt the emotions of Lantis' soul. He could clearly feel Lantis' love for this race. This was a true hero who sacrificed everything for the race. He deserved to have a statue erected in front of the Fire Kirin. Lantis, please don't worry. This lance will definitely be able to shine in my hands. Since I've taken over as the chief of the Fire Kirin, I, Lin Jun, will definitely do my best for the Fire Kirin, for Chief Sakya, and for you. Previously, Lin Jun still had a trace of perfunctory mood, but at this moment, it vanished into thin air. Since he became a black hole beast by chance, he was inseparable from the Fire Kirin race. Previously, Lin Jun felt that his home was in the new territories. But from today onwards, he also had a home in the primordial realm. A big family, and that was the Fire Kirin. When these emotions appeared in Lin Jun's heart, a miracle happened. A memory forcefully entered Lin Jun's mind. This wasn't obtained by Lin Jun using the black hole, but by Lantis' own will. There wasn't much in the memory. It was just a set of spear techniques that Lantis used when he was alive. The name of the spear technique was time. It was Lantis' original creation. It contained the four elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. There were a total of 4 moves in the spear technique. They were spring land, summer fire, autumn wind, and winter ice, combined with the flower of the 4 elements. The power of this spear technique even exceeded ordinary Holy Land martial arts. Others couldn't learn this spear technique. Even if they learned it, they wouldn't be able to use it. Only Lin Jun had the unique flower of the 4 elements. A virtual figure practiced the spear technique in Lin Jun's mind, allowing Lin Jun to quickly understand. This was the last power of Lantis' soul. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour passed. Below the world stone, Elder Li and the rest were already impatient. Lin Jun went up and made some noise. After that, he grabbed a spear and didn't move. Can you pull out? At least tell us. What's the meaning of not moving? Elder Li hinted at a few people with his eyes. These people immediately started arguing and attacking Lin Jun. Can you do it? If you can't, then come down. That's right. Why are you dragging it out? Do you want us all to wait for you? It's true that you're the patriarch, but you shouldn't fool everyone like this. Maybe you still don't know what happened? Amidst the noise, Lin Jun slowly opened his eyes. No matter what happened before, from now on, it's not a problem. Rise. Chapter 807. With Lin Jun's shout, the spear that had been stuck in the Kirin clan for billions of years was pulled out from the world stone. Witnessing this scene, some of the elders of the Kirin clan even knelt down in excitement. Leader Tianyu, this is the true patriarch. What did I just see? The leader actually pulled out the Lance of Lantis. You have to know that no one has been able to pull it out for billions of years. Leader, leader. Amidst the cheers, Lin Jun raised the Lance of Lantis in his hand. This spear was the best among the spirit treasures. With this spear in hand, Lin Jun's close combat ability was off the charts. With a flick of his wrist, light shot out in all directions. Lin Jun held the spear in his hand and scanned the crowd. The excited Kirin clan gathered around and shouted Lin Jun's name, calling him their leader. At this moment, Lin Jun had truly gained a foothold in the Kirin clan. I wonder if the elders still think that I'm not suitable to be the leader? Elder Li and the others didn't expect Lin Jun to be able to pull out the Lance of Lantis. The situation that was originally under their control had been reversed. Elder Wang and Elder Sima threw the wooden block to Elder Li, not knowing what to do. Elder Li's face darkened as he opened the dimensional universe to check. In the dimensional universe, Elder Li saw that the mercenaries were about to arrive. Within 10 minutes, they would definitely arrive at the entrance of the Kirin clan. At this moment, Lin Jun just came down from the giant rock. Elder Li snorted. Lin Jun, you don't have to act like the leader in front of me. I'm afraid that before you can sit on the leader's seat, your head will be separated from your body. What did you say? Elder Li said with some pride. Looking at you, I'm afraid you're still in the dark. Don't think that your position is stable after you pulled out the Lance of Lantis. Someone in the dimensional universe has already hired mercenaries to deal with you. I just took a look at the progress of the other party. They're about to arrive at the Kirin clan. Lin Jun really didn't look at the situation in the dimensional universe. He hurriedly opened it and saw that on the forum of the state of Qin, there was an extremely popular employment post. 5 million for one immortal level. Go to the Kirin clan to kill the new leader, Lin Jun. There were tens of millions of replies below. The recruitment of 10,000 mercenaries had been completed an hour and a half ago. They had been on the way for a long time and would be here soon. 2 hours would be enough for them to travel from the Qin capital to here, using the teleportation portal. 5 million for a job. That's a lot of money. I don't think there are many people who can afford that. After thinking for a while, Lin Jun had almost determined who it was Lin Jun. Other than Qian Tong, who was a saint-level alchemist, no one else had the ability to deal with him. After taking a look, Lin Jun closed the dimensional universe and looked at the people present. It seems that you all know about this. Yes, this matter has been spread. So, Lin Jun, I still advise you to take the initiative to hand over the position of the leader. It's not that we don't respect the will of the old leader, but as a member of the Fire Kirin clan, we have to think of the whole clan. If you take the initiative to give up the position, don't drag us down. So what if you pulled out the Lance of Lantis? If you bring disaster to the Kirin clan, you're still unqualified. Elderly said these words proudly. In his opinion, there was no doubt that Lin Jun would step down. However, he still underestimated the support of the Kirin clan for Lin Jun's heroic act. Lin Chuang was the first to arrive beside Lin Jun. Elderly, you don't need to cheer for those mercenaries. Lin Jun is the successor appointed by Patriarch Sakya and pulled out the Lance of Lantis. If he doesn't become the new leader, who else can? Do you think you're qualified? Elder Li's veins bulged in anger. When did I say I wanted to be the new leader? Even if you don't say it, others can see it. But our current patriarch is Lin Jun. If the mercenaries come, so be it. 10,000 mercenaries. Our Fire Kirin clan isn't afraid of them. Patriarch, you can rest assured that we will help you resist the enemy. Yes, yes, we will definitely protect the Patriarch. Many young people said. Lin Jun pulling out the Lance of Lantis had a great effect. At the very least, everyone's attitude towards him had completely changed. Elderly saw that everyone had come to Lin Jun's side and pointed at Lin Jun with a trembling finger. Lin Jun, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You use the Lance of Lantis to win people's hearts, but in reality, you want to use everyone as cannon fodder. There are tens of thousands of enemies, and our Fire Kirin clan doesn't exceed 20,000. Even if we can eliminate the enemy, how many people will be killed? Is this what you, Lin Jun, brought to us as the new leader? Elder Wang also said, that's right, we want peace and a Ning to cultivate. We don't want our clansmen to be involved in the flames of war. Just based on this point, Lin Jun, you are unqualified. After Lin Jun pulled out the Lance of Lantis, Lin Chuang and the others had already stood on Lin Jun's side. Just as they were about to refute the elders, Lin Jun waved his hand to stop them. No matter what your intentions are, what you said is correct. If we let our clansmen attack together, even if we win this battle, it won't be considered a success. My own matters should be settled by myself. Lin Jun's gaze swept across his clansmen. However, I am your patriarch after all. Since I'm but a fight, as my clansman, I should also put in some effort. Now, all clansmen, please support me. Someone wanted to say something, but Lin Jun waved his hand. No need to say anything. No one is allowed to interfere in this battle. I will also meet the enemy outside the Kirin clan's gate. If I lose, it has nothing to do with the Fire Kirin. If I win, we will celebrate together. Remember, this is the Patriarch's order. With Lin Jun giving such an order, the others didn't dare to say anything else. This new Patriarch seemed to be a man of his word. Finally, Lin Jun looked at the elders. The few of you think that I am unsuitable in every aspect. And I, Lin Jun, am not a man who repays evil with good. If I defeat the enemy, don't even think of remaining as elders. Elder Li and the others' expressions changed. However, from their point of view, Lin Jun wouldn't be able to get past this hurdle. The other party had found so many experts. Lin Jun couldn't possibly withstand them. At this moment, they said in a straightforward manner, all right, if you, Lin Jun, can win, the few of us will automatically give up our positions and leave the Fire Kirin. Then it's settled. Lin Jun didn't waste any more words. He walked towards the region outside the Pampas volcano. Soon, he walked out of the Fire Kirin's territory and the illusion formation protecting the mountain. The people of the Fire Kirin also followed Lin Jun out. However, they were all ordered by Lin Jun to stand outside the door and watch from afar. They can't follow. A gust of wind blew from the front, causing the yellow sand to dance in the air. The volcanic area looked bleak and desolate. Lin Jun stood in the open wilderness, waiting for the arrival of the enemy. The 5 galactic beasts, led by lightning, flew at the front of the group. Behind them, 10,000 immortal experts flew past like a swarm of locusts, blocking the light in the sky. These 10,000 immortal experts, plus the 3 Flower Peak experts from the 5 Holy Lands, were enough to sweep away an ordinary country. The Fire Kirin was a small branch of the Galactic Beast Alliance. It couldn't stop them from advancing. Beside lightning, there was 9 spirits from the demonic lion race, Red Witch from a vermilion bird race, Tai Shan from the black tortoise race, and Saber Shah from the white tiger race. These people were the best of their races. Unlike those rookies from the Star of Divine Punishment, or those who just entered the Holy Land. These people were super experts who had experienced countless life and death battles. Qian Tong spent 50 billion to hire 10,000 immortal experts. Hiring 5 of them cost 250 billion. The value of these 5 people was definitely above 10,000 immortals. Even a random person was worth 10,000 immortals. As the only saint alchemist, Qian Tong had a lot of money. This time, in order to completely eliminate Lin Jun, he had spent a lot of money. 9 spirits, Red Witch, Taishan, Saber Shah. Let's act together this time. What do you think? 9 spirits from the demonic lion race shook his head a few times. He was a mutated super galactic beast, 9-headed lion. He said in a rough voice, "Nothing. We only need to use our brains when we're not strong enough. Now that the 5 of us are attacking, even if the entire Fire Kirin race attacks together, they might not be able to stop us. What's the point of scheming? Let's just kill him." Red Witch from the Vermilion Bird race was the only female. She wore a red robe and nodded seductively. "I heard that Lin Jun is a handsome guy. If there's a chance, I want to play with him alone. Just don't interfere." Taishan was a tall and strong man. He patted his chest and said, "I'll just crush Lin Jun to death." Saber Shah from the White Tiger race waved the tiger head saber in his hand and said, "It would be great if we could take advantage of this opportunity to kill." Lightning chuckled, "If you want to kill, you can do it yourself in the future. If the Kirin race doesn't resist collectively, we'll just kill Lin Jun. You're the leader. You call the shots," 9 spirits said. "Okay, then let's speed up. We'll enter the Pampas volcano area in 1 minute." The team sped up and flew towards the Pampas volcano like a dark cloud moving at high speed. There were even many immortal stage experts who came with the mentality of being bystanders. They flew while broadcasting, showing all of this to the people of the state of Qin. Almost everyone in the state of Qin wanted to see the action of killing Lin Jun. The forest area of Tianling disappeared. The terrain gradually became desolate. After flying for a while, the Pampas volcano was already in sight. "Look, there seems to be someone there," Red Witch said. Everyone could see what was going on in front of them. At the entrance of the volcano, a large group of people was already waiting. A person stood at the front. It was their target, Lin Jun. Behind Lin Jun, tens of thousands of people from the Fire Kirin stood far away. They seemed to be ready to watch the battle. Chapter 808. When the enemy swooped down from the sky, some of the weaker ones among the Fire Kirin retreated in fear. The arrival of tens of thousands of super experts made them tremble with fear. They wondered how clan leader Lin Jun, who was standing in the distance, was able to withstand such powerful pressure. Lightning and the others descended from the sky and looked at Lin Jun. Lin Jun stood with his hands behind his back amidst the swirling yellow sand. A few kilometers behind him was the main force of Fire Kirins. However, they did not seem to have any intention of interfering. "Oh my, is the new Fire Kirin clan leader trying to be a hero? Are you trying to face all of us alone?" Lightning had defeated Lin Jun in a head-on battle before, so he was not afraid of Lin Jun at all. Instead, he mocked him without restraint. Red Witch of the Vermilion Bird tribe stepped forward as well. "What a handsome young man. However, you should know that trying to be a hero will cost you your life. Don't do something so foolish. Come to Big Sister. Let Big Sister take a look." As she spoke, Red Witch took a few steps forward as if she wanted to hug Lin Jun. Ignoring the wriggling, slender waist in front of him, Lin Jun raised his right hand and suddenly slashed it across the ground. Clang! With a loud sound, Lin Jun's palm released a powerful sword energy which carved a long trench in the ground. With a loud crack, the ground split open. Red Witch hurriedly took a step back, but a corner of her beautiful red dress had been cut off. She looked down and saw a trench that was 1,000 meters long, 3 meters wide, and dozens of meters deep. The corner of her dress was fluttering in the trench and falling to the ground. "Lin Jun, you bastard. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" Red Witch's expression changed drastically. If she had not dodged in time, she would have been cut in half by Lin Jun's sword. Her face turned pale, and a murderous aura emerged. Lin Jun coldly snorted. This is the territory of the Fire Kirin. I am the newly appointed patriarch, Lin Jun. I am warning you now. Do not cross this deep ravine without permission. Anyone who crosses the border will be killed without mercy. Lightning squinted his eyes slightly. Lin Jun's casual strike had already displayed his formidable strength. However, he had just exchanged blows with Lin Jun. Clearly, Lin Jun had not been this strong before. Lightning, you said you fought with him before, but I feel that this kid's strength is not inferior to ours. The 9 spirits from a demonic lion race asked from aside. Although they had come here full of confidence, Lin Jun's casual attack had given them a warning. This Lin Jun was much more powerful than what they knew. Lightning was also puzzled, but he suddenly thought of Lin Jun's other identity. He took medicine. He must have taken medicine. He wasn't this strong before. Yes, this kid is an alchemist. He knows that we are coming. He wants to fight to the death, Saber Shah added. Lightning thought he knew the answer. He said to the angry Red Witch, Sister, don't be impatient. Lin Jun's pill has a time limit. After half an hour, the effect of the pill will disappear, and he will enter a period of weakness. At that time, I will hand him over to you. You can do whatever you want with him. Red Witch glared fiercely at Lin Jun. Although she was annoyed, she didn't want to be the first to fight Lin Jun. She would only let others take advantage of her. Lightning looked behind him again and said, Don't tell anyone about this. Let these immortal experts take the lead. Since we have spent money to hire them, they have to play a role. Jiuling nodded and said, That's right. But we have to be vigilant. If Lin Jun can't resist, we have to go immediately. I'm quite interested in what's inside this kid's inner world. Taishan thought for a moment and said, I'm afraid that the immortal experts won't do anything. They won't be able to exhaust Lin Jun. At this time, Saber Shah said, This doesn't matter. Mercenaries have a certain level of professionalism. Unless Lin Jun is too strong for them to handle, they will still go and fight. Moreover, once the battle starts, they won't be able to retreat even if they want to. Oh, Brother Saber Shah, do you have any good ideas? Saber Shah took out a few bottles of medicine and distributed them. Then he said, This is the blood demon potion. It can invade a person's mind and affect their thinking. The more intense the battle, the crazier they will be. Now, let's disperse and open this potion. Then, we'll quietly sprinkle in the crowd. The few of them each took a bottle, and Saber Shah gave them the antidote. The few of them dispersed into the crowd. Lightning was in the center. He went deep into the crowd and said, Everyone, Lin Jun is right in front. This guy is right there. The chance to show his face in front of the entire country has come. Everyone attack together and destroy him. These immortal experts had the advantage in numbers. They didn't take Lin Jun seriously at all. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to take the lead and the credit would be taken away by others. Seeing that Lightning and the others didn't make the first move, they immediately prepared to join in the battle. Go, tear him to pieces. Saber Shah swept across the crowd. Colorless and formless medicine powder scattered as he shouted with an infectious voice. Go, kill him. Jiu Ling let out an earth-shattering roar. The image of a 9-headed lion appeared in the air. Go, kill him. Taishan's deep male voice rang out. Red Witch's sharp female voice rang out across the battlefield. In the crowd, 10 figures took the lead and moved. These 10 people were all masked with black masks. Their faces couldn't be seen clearly. They moved very quickly. Seeing that someone had made the first move, the people behind did not want to fall behind. Humans were like this. With someone taking the lead, the rest of the operation would go smoothly. Although Lin Jun had shown his super strength, no one knew what his trump card was before they made a move. Rumble. The army moved. Martial artists swarmed toward Lin Jun from all directions. As for the 10 figures who had made the move, they quietly disappeared into the crowd after the army set off. Facing the surging tide of people, Lin Jun tidied up his clothes calmly. Phew, this is my first battle in the Fire Qilin. Whether I can show my prowess as the clan leader will depend on this. He didn't take out the Lance of Lantis that he had just obtained, nor did he take out the sky, slashing divine sword. He also didn't release sword energy. He just stood there motionlessly, looking at the thousands of troops in front of him as if they were nothing. When the enemy's frontline troops were within 10,000 meters, Lin Jun made a move. He opened his mouth slightly toward the crowd that was rushing over. Oh my God! What is the clan leader doing? The enemy is already in front of him. Is he still planning to scold them? Clan leader, quickly take out your weapons and prepare to fight back. It will be too late later. The fire-chilling clansmen in the distance saw Lin Jun's strange action and shouted one after another. They had no idea what Lin Jun's action meant. A distance of a few thousand meters was just a matter of seconds for an immortal martial artist. This distance was already extremely dangerous. Some of the fire-chilling clansmen who weren't familiar with Lin Jun closed their eyes in fear. They had just lost a clan leader. Were they going to lose another clan leader? Lin Jun's action was very strange. Not only did the fire-chilling clansmen find it strange, but his opponents also found it strange. Even the people watching the live broadcast in the dimensional universe found it strange. They didn't know what Lin Jun was planning to do. Some people were worried that Lin Jun might use the black hole devour, but everyone was prepared for this. Once Lin Jun transformed into the black hole beast, they would scatter like wasps. They definitely wouldn't give Lin Jun a chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. They had already done their homework, but Lin Jun didn't look like he was going to transform into a black hole beast at all. Since he wasn't going to use the black hole devour, these immortal martial artists didn't put Lin Jun in their eyes and sped up. Ming Zhu was at the peak of immortality. He had been at the peak of immortality for a long time and was quite famous in the mercenary world. His speed was very fast. In addition, he started a little earlier than the others. His position was also good, so he ran at the front. The large ringed saber in his hand emitted a threatening cold air. He could already clearly see Lin Jun's every move. Although Lin Jun was quite famous, mercenaries had been through countless life and death battles. He really didn't put Lin Jun, a guy who had just entered the Holy Land, in his eyes. What he believed in was that whether it was a mule or a horse that came out for a stroll, no matter how famous Lin Jun was, he would only know it after a real fight. Come on, Lin Jun, become a ghost under my large ringed saber. After killing you, I'll become famous in the Qin Kingdom. I'll become a hero and receive the cheers of the people. In the future, my price in the mercenary world will also rise. With money, I could buy a divine body and reach the three-flower realm. Without a divine body, one couldn't enter the three-flower realm. This was the reality that every immortal martial artist had to face. Brothers, prepare to support me with long-range firepower. I'll kill him in close combat. He had two companions by his side. One was a telekinesis master who was good at using flying daggers, while the other had high attainments in bow and arrow. Hearing Ming Zhu's call, the two companions launched long-range attacks at the same time. This trident combination wanted to make a name for themselves in front of everyone. The arrows and flying daggers flew out under the control of the martial artists. At this moment, something unbelievable happened. Lin Jun opened his mouth as if he was spitting something out. His lips moved slightly, and light spots flew out one after another. The arrows and flying daggers were accurately hit in the air and spun to the side. After eliminating the long-range harassment, a light spot instantly arrived in front of Ming Zhu. It was a light-speed attack. After all, Ming Zhu was only an immortal level. Facing a light-speed long-range attack, he was completely helpless. He didn't even have time to dodge before the light spot pierced through his forehead. There was a hole in between his eyebrows. The light spot was a golden aura that pierced through his spiritual sea and his brain. Ming Zhu's great ambition came to an end at this moment. His body leaned back. In the last moment of his life, he saw light spots shooting out of Lin Jun's mouth like a storm. It's all over. Chapter 809. When Lin Jun was on Earth, he also yearned to be a firearms user. Although in the world of martial artists, firearms were ultimately unrefined, they also had their own unique charm. The joy of firing a machine gun and cutting down a large group of enemies was something that swords and other weapons couldn't achieve. Unfortunately, firearms became useless after reaching a certain level. Even laser weapons, railguns, and other weapons became less and less useful after reaching the Star Realm. After passing through the black hole stage, as long as they weren't hit by the main cannons of interstellar battleships, they could basically ignore firearms. Therefore, Lin Jun once thought that he would never be able to carry a machine gun and shoot at enemies. But he didn't expect that he would obtain the Qilin spear and Qilin cannon by chance. If Lin Jun were to rely on swords to fight these immortal experts, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. In the end, he would either run away or die. But the Qilin spear was a sharp weapon. Unlike the black hole stage, which required time to transform and prepare, the Qilin spear could be used by Lin Jun as soon as he opened his mouth. When the enemy attacked, the first thing to approach him wasn't the enemy, but countless long-range attacks. The main ones were throwing knives and arrows. In this kind of group battle, very few people would use mental attacks. This was because if you attacked the enemy, you would be shocked. If you stopped, you wouldn't be able to kill the enemy. Facing these throwing knives and arrows, Lin Jun immediately opened his mouth and started shooting elemental bullets. The 4 elemental flowers in his body were like a huge turntable full of bullets. After being converted by the perfect crystal, the bullets shot out from his mouth could reach the speed of light. Fall for me. Da-da-da. In the beginning, Lin Jun's aim was slightly off. He needed several bullets to shoot down the throwing knives and arrows. But soon he found the target. A metal-attributed elemental bullet shot out, knocking down the fastest martial artist in one shot. Don't underestimate this small elemental bullet. Even a drop of water could cause great damage if it was shot at the speed of light, let alone this type of elemental bullet. That immortal stage expert that even Lin Jun would have to spend a lot of effort to deal with was killed on the spot. A pillar of blood soared into the sky. In Lin Jun's eyes, it was the most beautiful and shocking scene. It was also from this moment onwards that Lin Jun began his frenzied slaughter. Ha ha! If you want my life, you'll have to pay with your own life first. Da-da-da. His lips trembled at an extremely high frequency, and bullets whizzed out one after another. There were red fire bullets, white ice bullets, yellow earth bullets, green wind bullets, and the occasional golden bullet. Because there were too many enemies, Lin Jun did not even need to aim. He only needed to focus on the crowd and unleash his firepower. Regardless of whether it was the enemy's long-range attacks or the people who were rushing over, at this moment, it was as if they were grass being mowed down. Pillars of blood shot up into the sky. Screams resounded through the clouds. Looking from the back, these immortal martial artists were like a suicide squad, rushing forward dauntlessly. Lin Jun alone was a powerful machine gun formation. A machine gun that could fire dozens of bullets in a minute was already very good, but the bullets in Lin Jun's mouth were thousands of bullets per second. The most important thing was that these bullets were at the speed of light. It was impossible to dodge. At this moment, Lin Jun suddenly recalled a small game in the Christian calendar on Earth. Plants, zombies, or something like that. At this moment, he was the shooter who was constantly firing bullets. No, he was like tens of thousands of shooters, unleashing a barrage of bullets on the zombie horde. Ha ha! A large wave of zombies is approaching. Come on, come on. No matter how many come, I'll kill them all. Da-da-da. His mouth moved left and right, and a piece of lightning whizzed out, drawing countless rays in the air, leaving behind a dense space crack like a spider web. The group of martial artists was still considered scattered. There were some on the ground, some in the air, and some in the sky. But under such a dense firepower, they fell down like dumplings. Some people were directly killed in one shot. Some who were more unlucky were even hit by more than a dozen energy bullets in an instant, turning into sieves in an instant. Everyone was crazy. The attackers were crazy, and the spectators were also crazy. The Qilin clan martial artists did not forget their mission. After being stunned at the beginning, everyone burst into earth-shattering cheers. Patriarch, too cool. Oh, I'm going crazy. Patriarch, you're simply crazy. What kind of combat skill is this? It's too dazzling. No, no. I'm going to faint from the Patriarch's handsomeness. Patriarch, do your best. Destroy all these bastards. Patriarch, victory. Patriarch, victory. Patriarch, victory! This kind of cathartic shouting was no longer enough to vent the excitement in their hearts. They despised shouting like this too softly. Lin Chuang was the first to use the fire Qilin transformation. A huge fire Qilin appeared and let out an earth-shattering roar. Following Lin Chuang's lead, the other martial artists also began to transform. Soon, the crowd of spectators at the back became countless fire Qilins. Huge fire clouds rose, and sulfur filled the air. This large group of Qilins began to roar even more excitedly than in heat. The sound shook the volcano rhythmically, as if it was about to erupt at any time. In this kind of environment, Elder Li and the others had no choice but to transform into Qilins and make up the numbers. But their hearts were already filled with regret. Why did they have to compete with Lin Jun? Why did they greedily covet the position of Patriarch? If they knew that Lin Jun had such powerful strength, they would not have done such a stupid thing. But unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. They only hoped that the other party's mercenaries could be a little more powerful and not be destroyed by Lin Jun like this. 10,000 martial artists, it was not a lot, but it was not a small number either. After nearly 30 seconds of charging, a total of more than 6,000 had died. The whole sky was covered in blood. There were corpses everywhere. Some were seriously injured, but not dead, and some were beaten into minced meat. All of this happened too fast, like a nightmare that caught everyone off guard. Some martial artists originally wanted to retreat, but in the bloody environment, they forgot about their fear and forgot to retreat. 5 million was nothing for an immortal expert. These martial artists came here for fame and to join in the fun. They thought that they would win, but they didn't expect it to be so tragic. Among these martial artists, not all of them were powerless. There was a martial artist who had a spirit artifact shield in his hand. When Lin Jun's bullet storm came, the martial artist raised a shield. The shield was very large, more than 5 meters in diameter. Moreover, with the infusion of star power, it could release a halo that could effectively block Lin Jun's energy bullets. After a series of banging sounds, the martial artist was beaten back again and again. However, the bullets did not penetrate his shield, so the area behind him was a safe zone. Although the martial artists didn't want to retreat, their instincts still made them look for a safe place. After seeing this shield, countless warriors in the surroundings quickly rushed over. Quick, quick, quick! There's a shield here. We can rush over with this shield. Everyone, let's go. As long as we can get through this bullet zone, we can tear Lin Jun into pieces. Hurry up. I can't hold on any longer. Get someone else to use star power. If the shield is knocked down, we will all die. Lin Jun also noticed this shield. Behind this huge shield, there were hundreds of people gathered like a long dragon. Moreover, the surviving warriors were still rushing towards the shield. It was obvious that they wanted to rely on the power of the shield to fight against Lin Jun. Lin Jun raised his eyebrows slightly. He channeled his star power again, and the 4 elemental flowers spun wildly. He increased the speed of the bullets and bombarded the shield with all his strength. Bullets that were countless times denser than the heaviest rainstorm were crazily bombarded. Lin Jun needed very little star power to fire this kind of bullet. The perfect crystal was a very good converter, allowing Lin Jun to continue this kind of attack for a long time. However, to resist with the shield, a large amount of star power was needed. The first martial artist in the front row moved less than 3 meters with the shield. His star power was almost exhausted, and the next person had to be replaced. The hundreds of martial artists became thousands of martial artists. People lined up in a long line, not daring to expose any traces. They all hid behind the shield, one after another, and moved forward with the shield in the stupid way. They were united as one, and their will was as strong as an impregnable fortress. They firmly believed that they could get close to Lin Jun and kill him. More than half of the 3,000 martial artists present had already gathered behind the shields. The rest of the scattered martial artists would be turned into sieves by the dense torrent of bullets if they got a little closer. Because Lightning and the others didn't stand at the front at the beginning, they avoided this wave of attacks. Seeing the martial artists slowly moving forward like a long worm, Lightning frowned slightly. An ominous premonition shrouded his heart. This Lin Jun, he seems to be deliberately allowing the martial artists to gather together. What is he trying to do? That's not right. This shield looks sturdy, but as long as Lin Jun changes his position and teleports to another position, the people behind the shield will be live targets. Why didn't he do that? Not good. Lightning's eyes widened, and he let out a hoarse roar to the crowd. Get out of the way. He's going to use a big move. His warning was still too late. Even if it was early, it was useless because everyone was going crazy. Lin Jun suddenly turned into an armor, and his head became bigger. A mass of energy quickly gathered in his throat, and he opened his mouth fiercely. Too late. Following this explosive sound, a huge energy beam, like the main cannon of a space battleship, opened fire. This was the Qilin cannon. The cannon fiercely bombarded the spirit treasure shield, and the shield suddenly cracked like a spider web. The person holding the shield behind spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down without a sound. Good spirit treasure. Again, the second cannon opened fire. With a loud noise, the shield was shattered into pieces by the second cannon. You don't have any defense this time, right? Again, Lin Jun opened his mouth, and the energy beam in his throat attacked again. Chapter 8:10. After the spirit treasures were destroyed, Lin Jun's Qilin cannon finally displayed its formidable power. Because the martial artists were in a straight line, the martial artists at the back did not even know that the shields in front had been destroyed. They did not dodge in time, and thus a disaster occurred. Apart from the 200 to 300 martial artists at the front who saw their shields shatter and fled immediately, the 1,400 martial artists at the back were pierced through by the Qilin cannon. The reason why Lin Jun had chosen to stand in the front was because he had been waiting for this moment. The energy beam pierced through the first person to the last person. Everywhere it passed, there was only a large number of legs left. The upper bodies of the people who were hit by the energy beam were immediately vaporized. The remaining legs fell from the sky with a crackling sound. After this attack, there were less than 2,000 of the mercenaries who had come to attack Lin Jun. They were not much of a threat. Lin Jun switched to the attack mode of the Qilin spear again and began to fire accurately. Corpses fell from the sky one after another. The number of enemies was decreasing, and soon there were less than 1,000 of them. Until now, not a single person had been able to cross the canyon that Lin Jun had created with his sword aura. Chapter 8:11. When Lin Jun was tied up and fell to the ground without a sound, it was a moment of celebration for the people of the state of Qin. Especially when a martial artist said that Lin Jun was dead, the people of the state of Qin were even more excited than if they had won the lottery. The celebratory posts on the forums couldn't be seen clearly at all. They were blurred images that quickly moved up. Loud cheers could be heard in any city in the state of Qin. Whatever the merchants were selling, they would do it in the name of celebration. In just a few short seconds, there were all sorts of things like Lin Jun's death rope, Lin Jun's death veil, and so on. There were even legends of the top 10 masters, but no one knew who they were. Some poets and scholars were already preparing to write. Whoever wrote it first would be the bestseller. This 1 minute was the time in heaven for the people of the state of Qin. After 3 people confirmed that Lin Jun was dead, the leading 3-flower martial artist walked over. Sigh. I overestimated this Lin Jun. We didn't need 5 beast-binding spirit chains to deal with him. This is like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. No matter how talented he is, he's still just a world king. How can he overturn the heavens? There's no other way. He's already dead. Let's take him away and report to the Sage Master. Come, let's untie these ropes. A 50 billion rope is the most expensive rope in the primordial realm. Everyone, be careful. Don't break it. Maybe the Sage Master will use it to tie up other galactic beasts in the future. The 10 people formed groups of 2 and began to untie Lin Jun's ropes. Before the beast-binding spirit chains appeared, they were in an illusory state and couldn't be discovered. After they appeared, they would reveal a light golden rope. It was said that the material came from the endless sea of stars. A single beast-binding spirit chain was enough to bind any galactic beast. To deal with Lin Jun, 5 were used as a precaution. After removing the beast-binding spirit chains from Lin Jun's neck and limbs, the leading martial artist said, "I'll take away Lin Jun's corpse. I'll personally show it to the Sage Master." The martial artists didn't have any objections, but one of them sighed. This battle was too simple. It wasn't satisfying at all. Indeed, Lin Jun didn't live up to his reputation. He didn't value his life and died just like that. The Fire Chelan's clansmen were inconsolable from afar. Their newly promoted patriarch had died just like that. This was something they were absolutely unwilling to see. All of the Fire Chelans transformed into their human forms. Some of them even cried until they almost fainted. Elder Li and the others also pretended to wipe their eyes a few times and said to the people present, "Don't be sad. Although the patriarch is gone, our lives still have to go on. These people didn't come for us. We aren't in any danger." I think Elder Wang is the pillar of our clan. He won't have any problems being elected as the clan leader. Elderly can be said to be a jade pillar that supports the sky and a golden bridge that supports the sea. His moral character and martial arts are second to none in our clan. Only he is qualified to be the clan leader. Some of the older generation started quarreling on the spot. They were fighting over the position of clan leader. But the selection of a new clan leader wasn't something they could decide on. It required the consent of the majority of the clan. The proportion of young people was very large. Lin Chuang said at this moment, "Stop quarreling. We will only agree to let whoever can bring back the clan leader's corpse to be the new clan leader. If you can't even do this, then you don't deserve it." This sentence immediately received the approval of all the young people. The clan leader's corpse was about to be taken away, but they were still fighting for power. It was really chilling. The few elders immediately went silent. How was it possible to snatch Lin Jun's corpse at this time? The leading martial artist held 5 beast binding spirit chains in one hand and grabbed Lin Jun with the other. "Lin Jun, oh Lin Jun, your clan leader is really pitiful. You might be the shortest-lived clan leader in the history of the Fire Chelan. You just died here, and you're already fighting for the position. You're really a failure in this life." As he spoke, he was about to pull Lin Jun's clothes, but before he could use any strength, he felt his hands sink. What's going on? Who's pulling my beast binding spirit chains? Hurry up and let go. This thing is precious. A voice said, "It's not yours whether it's precious or not. What are you worried about? You should worry about your own life." A strong force surged over, and the 5 beast binding spirit chains were directly snatched away by the other party. "What are you doing?" Lin Jun." His pupils instantly dilated. On the ground, Lin Jun suddenly opened his eyes. His shout came too late. Lin Jun's body bounced, and the lance of Lantis suddenly appeared in his hand. The long lance was placed horizontally on his shoulder, and his body suddenly spun like a windmill. A faint layer of golden light was plated on the long lance. This was Lin Jun's ultimate skill, gold enchantment. The surrounding martial artists were not ordinary people. They were all super experts in the 3-flower realm. Although they were not martial artists of the Holy Land, each of them had extraordinary strength. Lin Jun's long lance swept up wind and clouds. Although they did not have time to dodge, they still instinctively raised their weapons to defend themselves. Among these weapons, there was no lack of spirit treasure-level treasures. However, these treasures were like paper in front of Lin Jun's Lance of Lantis, which was enchanted with gold. The Lance of Lantis itself was the best of the spirit treasures. After gold enchantment, it was simply indestructible. A ball of golden light burst out like the birth of a red sun. Thousands of rays of light dispelled all the haze and darkness. Wherever the long lance passed, weapons broke, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. 9 out of the 10 3-flower realm experts were directly cut in half by Lin Jun's attack. Only the leading martial artist dodged a little, and the light of the lance swept across his chest. However, his sternum was still cut open, revealing the squirming organs inside. It seemed that he would not survive. The leading martial artist staggered a few steps back and knelt down weakly. He pointed a finger at Lin Jun. Aren't you dead? Lin Jun laughed, holding the Lance of Lantis in one hand and the 5 beast-binding spirit chains in the other. Who told you I'm dead? I'm alive and well. It's just that you people have eyes but can't see. You can't even tell if a person is dead or alive. As he spoke, he suddenly lowered his head and approached the leading martial artist. You idiots, do you think the beast-binding spirit chains are my nemesis? There's no harm in telling you. This is just a clone. It has no life to begin with. So what's the point of binding it? I can make my clone lose all signs of life at any time. And I can also make it come back to life at any time. Pretending to be dead is just waiting for you to stupidly deliver yourself to my door so I can catch you all in one fell swoop. Shaking the beast-binding spirit chains in his hand, Lin Jun grinned meaningfully. These things are good, I'll accept them. Thank you for sending me such a big gift. I should be thanking Qiantong. I believe Qiantong must be watching the situation here through his dimensional universe right now. But unfortunately, he can't hear what I'm saying, so let him be anxious. After saying so, Lin Jun raised his head and shouted outside, Qiantong, after I return to the Holy Land, we'll settle accounts. The leading martial artist suddenly realized why Lin Jun had lost all signs of life without hesitation. It turned out that this was a clone, but according to their investigation, didn't Lin Jun's clone disappear? How could there be another one? They had spent so much effort to set up this trap, but in the end, they caught a lifeless and meaningless clone. This was simply a great irony. He was unwilling, but Lin Jun wouldn't give him any more chances. The long spear in his hand swept out, completely ending the life of the leading martial artist. At this point, the 10 three-flower cultivators had all died. There were still some scattered immortal experts floating in the air, but now they woke up from the effects of the medicine. Seeing the situation, they immediately turned around and ran away. Whether Lightning and the others could kill Lin Jun or not, it had nothing to do with them. They would never stay here any longer. This kind of battle wasn't something they could participate in. In the Holy Land, Qiantong slammed the table, destroying a newly refined bottle of pills. Lin Jun, don't be too complacent. Lightning and the others are the main force this time. My 10 guests are just 3-flower cultivators from the Holy Land. They are completely different from the 3-flower cultivators of the Holy Land. Even if you defeat them, don't think you can escape from Lightning and the others. Lin Jun's shout just now put him in the eye of the storm. Qiantong believed that the 5 young masters would find trouble with him. Now, Qiantong could only hope that Lightning and the others would kill Lin Jun as soon as possible. At this point, he could no longer turn back. The people of the Qilin clan were dumbfounded at this moment. Things had changed too suddenly. Lin Jun, who was thought to be dead, had suddenly come back to life, completely unscathed. Furthermore, he had brazenly attacked and used the Lance of Lantis to kill 10 three-flower cultivators as if he were killing chickens. The great joys and sorrows of life were too exciting. After a brief moment of shock, the Qilin clan burst into shouts that shook the sky. The fire Qilins, who had just returned to their human forms, once again transformed into Star River beasts and shouted as loudly as they could for their patriarch. Lin Chuang and the others rushed out excitedly, wanting to express their joy to their patriarch face-to-face, but they were stopped by Lin Jun with a wave of his hand. My clansmen, I can understand your current feelings, but please don't get too excited because the battle is not over yet. Patriarch, let us help. There are only 5 of them left. How can we just stand by and watch them run wild in our fire, Kirin? Lin Chuang shouted. Indeed, even if Lightning and the others were very strong, they wouldn't be able to resist the fire Qilins. When Lightning and the others heard this, their expressions changed. Their eyes darted around, wondering if they should run away immediately. Lin Jun chuckled, Don't worry. I promise you will definitely be able to help in this battle. Just listen to my orders. Lin Chuang and the others didn't move. At this moment, Lin Jun's words were like an imperial edict in their hearts, carrying absolute authority. Lin Jun's eyes swept over them. Elder Li and the others didn't dare to raise their heads. Finally, his gaze fell on Lightning and the others. Asterisk Pa. Star. Chapter 8:12. After Lin Jun finished speaking, he waved his hand at the surrounding Fire Kirin clansmen. All clansmen, listen to my command. Surround these people and activate the Heavenly Fire Array. Don't let any of them escape. The surrounding clansmen agreed loudly. The Fire Kirin had an array, which was also the guarantee of the existence of a clan. At this moment, Lin Jun gave the order. Even Elder Li and the others did not dare to disobey. All the clansmen automatically dispersed. There was a Fire Kirin not far away. They leaned against each other, and the flames around their bodies rose, forming a flame cage that was 1,000 meters tall. The flames that burned the sky rose like a volcano. The strong fire elements made it impossible for people to get close. Even if someone did not fear the power of the flames and approached, they would be attacked by the Fire Kirins hidden in the flames. Seeing Lin Jun set up such a formation, Lightning and the others' expressions changed drastically. Lin Jun, didn't you say that your clansmen would not interfere in our battle? Why are you going back on your word? Lin Jun sneered. My clansmen are not interfering now. They are just preventing you from suddenly escaping. If you have the ability to defeat me, I guarantee that they will let you go unconditionally. If you can't even defeat me, then I'm afraid you will have to stay. They won't interfere in the battle? Lin Jun shook his head. Absolutely not. After saying that, he gave another order to the Fire Kirin clansmen. No one was allowed to participate in his battle. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. Seeing Lin Jun give such a guarantee, Lightning and the others breathed a sigh of relief. If that was the case, they were not afraid of Lin Jun. Although Lin Jun had used guns and cannons to kill 10,000 immortal martial artists, in a battle with the Holy Land martial artists, the final outcome of the battle was still the Holy Land martial arts and one's own strength. The 5 of them were at the peak of the 3-flower Holy Land martial artists. They did not believe that they could not deal with a mere world king like Lin Jun. What should we do? Should we test this guy's background first? Lightning turned to face the others. Jiuling, Red Witch, Tai Shan, and Blade Shah looked at each other, and Jiuling stepped forward. I know that the 4 of you are from the 4 Sacred Beast clans. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise should have some trump cards. So let me test Lin Jun. Let me see how arrogant this brat is. Seeing that Jiuling had taken the initiative to fight, Lightning and the others all nodded in agreement. Although the 5 of them were the leaders, it did not mean that their strength surpassed that of the 9 spirits. In fact, the 9 spirits were the strongest among them. The reason why Lightning could lead the others to fight together was mainly because he was the head of the 4 spirits, the Eastern Azure Dragon race. As the 4 sacred beasts, the 4 clans had an alliance. Although the Azure Dragon clan belonged to the Dragon clan, they were actually closer to the other 3 clans. The 4 of them often worked together. In terms of one-on-one combat, the 4 of them were not as good as the 9 spirits, including the Azure Dragon Lightning. Moreover, if one of the 4 of them fought first and lost, the 4 of them wouldn't be able to work together to attack, so they couldn't split up. Jiuling took the initiative to stand up, which was exactly what the 4 of them wanted. Jiuling arrived in front of Lin Jun. Her tall body was like a small mountain, and a valiant aura rushed toward him. Hee, 9-headed lion, there don't seem to be many people in your clan. Lin Jun said, You're wrong. I'm from the demonic lion clan. There are many people in the demonic lion clan, and the 9-headed lion is a mutation of the demonic lion. It's just like how Lin Jun's black hole beast is a mutation of the fire Qilin. That's right. It's a very rare galactic beast. Since it's rare, it should be quite strong. Since you've come out, then let's begin. Lin Jun, pay the price for your arrogance. Following Jiuling's roar, a strong fishy smell rushed toward them. His weapon was a long saber. The blade was dark and shiny, and when he slashed down, an unparalleled aura rushed toward them. This was a saber technique from the Holy Land. Lin Jun sneered and raised the Lance of Lantis in his hand. Open for me. The sound of a huge collision was like thunder, exploding in the air. Jiuling took 2 steps back, then attacked again as if he had stepped on a spring. Lin Zhen's astral power was not much better than Jiuling's. This kind of veteran three-flower peak cultivator strength was not to be underestimated. At the very least, in terms of astral power, Lin Zhen's strength was limited. However, after this attack, Lin Zhen felt more confident. As long as his opponent's astral power did not crush him, Lin Zhen was not afraid of him. Moreover, his long spear was a heavy weapon, which gave him an advantage in close combat. He waved the long spear in his hand, and the long-lost feeling returned. The tip of the spear turned into thousands of peach blossoms, enveloping Jiuling's vital points. An intense battle began. Jiuling's saber technique walked the path of ferocity, but today he met Lin Zhen, who was even more ferocious than him. After the long spear was enchanted with gold, its lethality was simply outrageous. Jiuling's long saber did not have the slightest advantage in a direct confrontation. Instead, he was at a disadvantage in the fierce collision. His astral power was slightly inferior, his physical strength was slightly inferior, and his weapon was slightly inferior. These factors combined were enough to make it impossible for Jiuling to turn the tables. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in all directions, and Jiuling kept retreating in the continuous bombardment. His arms and weapon could not withstand such a fierce bombardment. Seeing that this could not go on, Jiuling gritted his teeth and unleashed his strongest saber technique. 100 Battle Saber Aura. The saber shadows that filled the sky turned into a field of cold stars, and specks of light flashed. 3 flowers bloomed above his head, and all of his essence, energy, and spirit gathered on the saber and slashed. Seeing Jiuling use his trump card, Lin Zhen's body spun, and the long spear drew a mysterious trajectory. The memories of Lantis surfaced, and Lin Zhen used the ancient spear technique that he had just learned. Lana Spring, a burst of fire elements turned into a warm wind that blew past. In Jiuling's eyes, it was as if he saw the arrival of spring, the recovery of all living things, and the earth exuding vitality. This was not an illusion, but real vitality. This was because the earth seemed to have a life of its own. Sharp stone pillars soared into the sky, forming earth spikes that thrusted towards the 9 spirits. The countless saber auras were exhausted by the sudden attack of these earth spikes, and Lin Zhen's long spear still turned into a straight line, directly enveloping Jiuling's chest and rushing forward. The dark clouds of death shrouded Jiuling's head. When Lin Zhen used this spear, Jiuling knew that he would definitely not be able to block it. He had never seen such a powerful spear technique combined with an earth elemental attack in the Holy Land for such a long time. He wondered where Lin Zhen had learned it from. Between life and death, Jiuling was ruthless enough. He poured all of his astral power into the long saber in his hand to take on Lin Zhen's attack head-on. In a situation where he could not block, a huge lion head appeared and viciously bit towards Lin Zhen's long spear. With a boom, the lion head was shattered by Lin Zhen, and his body was sent flying. He suffered heavy injuries, but he managed to preserve his life. The injured lion was also very dangerous. Jiuling's ferocious aura was stimulated, and his body rolled on the ground, transforming into a huge demonic lion. One by one, the lion heads grew, and there were a total of 9 of them. One of them had already closed his eyes, and this was the one that had just been injured. However, he still had 8 lion heads that he could use. The huge head trembled, and one after another charged towards Lin Zhen. Lin Zhen, I'm going to eat you alive. Using the Galaxy Beast's main body to attack, this was also the last resort of the 9 spirits. Lin Zhen laughed. What a joke. Although the 9-headed lion is rare, it's impossible for it to attack me. Today, I can still take care of you without using my long spear. With a shake of his body, a 5-colored Qilin appeared. Everyone's eyes widened, because what they saw was not the black hole beast from before. At least, the color was different. This Qilin had already entered the mature stage, and its body was even bigger and more powerful. With a deafening roar from Lin Zhen, a layer of faint golden light covered his body, making his scales look like they were plated with gold. After getting close, Lin Jun roared and rushed over, ignoring the attacks of the nine-headed lion's heads. He lowered his head, and his two antlers suddenly shook, knocking Jiuling to the ground. With a roar, he pounced forward and bit down on Jiuling's throat with a chokehold. Jiuling frantically bit at Lin Jun, but the defensive power of the golden scales was so strong that it was abnormal. His biting was like a child playing house, unable to do anything to Lin Jun at all. On the other hand, Lin Jun's choke attack made him even more powerless, and he could only struggle desperately to escape. The two giant beasts let out a deafening roar, rolling and roaring on the ground. Their manes danced in the wind, and blood splattered everywhere. This kind of primitive battle was shocking to watch. The nine-headed lion's transformation was very powerful, but he was unlucky today to have met his nemesis, Lin Jun. The nine-headed lion was a mutated lion, and lions belonged to the walking beast race. Among all the walking beasts, the strongest was the Qilin. The scale dragon race was the king, and the bird race was the king. Among the walking beasts, no one could surpass the Qilin. The Qilin's body was born for battle. Its fangs and claws were sharp, and its mouth was larger and more terrifying than other walking beasts. Its body was covered in scales, and its head had a sharp horn. Its entire body was covered in weapons. Moreover, Lin Jun was a mutated four-element Qilin, and with the golden energy on his body, he was simply invulnerable. The fierce biting battle lasted for 5 minutes. The ground was almost flipped over by their battle, and Jiuling finally exhausted his star power under Lin Jun's continuous attacks. His body gradually softened. Lin Jun's sharp fangs and claws left countless wounds on his body, almost taking his life. If this continued, he would definitely die. When Lightning and the others saw that Jiuling was about to die, they no longer cared about anything else and immediately rushed forward. Lin Jun roared, and the 4 elemental flowers in his body rotated. Earth, water, fire, and wind surged, blocking Lightning and the others. With a swing of his huge head, he threw Jiuling out. His body turned into human form, and with a raise of his hand, a long rope soared into the sky, directly binding Jiuling into a dumpling. Beast-binding spirit chains. Jiuling's body and soul were bound by the beast-binding spirit chains. Watch him for me. Don't let him break free. This is your patriarch's spoil of war. Chapter 8:13. By the time Lightning and the others broke through Lin Jun's earth, water, fire, and wind defenses, Jiuling had already been captured by the Fire Qilin's people. She was tied up like a dumpling, and there was no way she could break free. Lightning's eyelids twitched. He didn't expect Lin Jun to be this strong. He could actually defeat Jiuling, who was the strongest in combat. Luckily, Jiuling had gone first. If they had gone first, the result wouldn't have been any better. Lin Jun, don't be too complacent. It's just defeating Jiuling, but everything you have now is just an illusion. As long as you're defeated by us, everything you have will be gone. Lin Jun waved the lance of Lantis and said, "Save your breath. I've never liked people who only know how to talk. Show me what you've got." Okay, Lin Jun, prepare to die. Lightning didn't dare to get too close to Lin Jun. Instead, he called for his 3 companions to attack together. The 4 of them moved forward in a roundabout manner, surrounding Lin Jun in the center. To be able to enjoy the combined attack of 4 sacred beasts, looks like today is going to be fun. Lin Jun faced the 3 flowers of the 4 sacred lands without fear. He rushed toward the Blade Fiend on the right. The Blade Fiend was from the White Tiger race. He had been very confident in himself, but after seeing Lin Jun fight Jiuling, his confidence disappeared. Jiuling also used a blade, and her strength was above his. If she was beaten up by Lin Jun, then there was no way he could beat her. If it was a one-on-one fight, he would definitely turn and run. However, he wouldn't because he had companions. Mount Tai. The Blade Fiend roared, and Mount Tai suddenly approached him. A huge black shield appeared, blocking Lin Jun's path of attack. Lin Jun swung his spear, and the Lance of Lantis, which was enchanted with gold, smashed into the shield. The power of this spear was even greater than when he fought Jiuling. After a loud bang, Lin Jun returned without success. Behind the shield, Taishan showed himself with a huge shield in each of his hands. There were fine veined patterns on the surface of his shield. It didn't look like it was made of gold or iron. It was unknown what material it was made of, but it actually blocked Lin Jun's attack without the slightest bit of damage. Lin Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. A shield formed from 2 tortoise shells is indeed very sturdy. Taishan's face darkened. Lin Jun, I hate it when people call me a tortoise. You have to pay for what you said today. If you want to pay the price, you must be prepared to pay the price. Lin Jun didn't waste any more words. He swung his spear and attacked again. Lightning and Red, which also began to attack from the back. They blocked Lin Jun's attack from the front, while Baleful Sword launched a thunderous attack from the side. In the beginning, Lin Jun had thought that if the 4 of them worked together, their coordination would be a problem. However, he had not expected that the pincer attack from the 4 of them would be so powerful. Azure Dragon's weapon was a halberd. Red Witch's weapon was a long burning whip. Baleful Sword's weapon was a long saber. Taishan's weapon was 2 tortoise shell shields. The 4 of them had worked together countless times. They advanced and retreated according to the rules, attacking and defending as one. When each of them attacked Lin Jun, there would be someone supporting them from the side. When one of them was attacked, there would be someone helping them from the side. When everyone's attacks slowed down, there would be someone continuing to attack. This coordination could be described as flawless. Taishan was the core of the battle. Although Taishan's body was huge, he could always appear where he should be, blocking Lin Jun's powerful attack with his 2 extremely sturdy shields. Lin Jun's Planetfall and Starfall were unable to break through Taishan's defense. Under Taishan's protection, the other 3 attacked as much as they liked. They actually had the upper hand. The surrounding spears and sabers were like rain, and the shadows of whips were flickering. The sky full of attacks actually caught Lin Jun off guard. Ha! Lin Jun, do you think you can fight against us just because you defeated Jiuling? You're too naive. The 4 of us came from the Free City's Earth class. We've been working together for tens of thousands of years. Lin Jun, you're still far behind. Lightning finally found an opportunity. While Lin Jun was blocking Baleful Sword's attack, he attacked with his halberd. He attacked continuously at the speed of light. More than 8,000 attacks stabbed at the same point. Lin Jun felt pain in his waist. He was injured. Injuries in such a battle were very fatal. The opponents took the opportunity to attack. Soon, Lin Jun was injured in several places. Although it was not fatal, it was a sign of failure. No, if I don't break Taishan's shield defense, I won't be able to counterattack. At this point, Lin Jun could no longer hold back. He had to break the tortoise shell in front of him. 4 spirits combined attack. And here, with a thought, Lin Xin threw out the planet god bead she took from her body. A ray of light shot out from Lin Jun's hand and hit Taishan's shield. Taishan saw the ray of light and instinctively used the shield in his left hand to defend. However, he did not know the secret of the planet god pearl. It looked small, but it was as heavy as a star. Taishan felt an unstoppable force coming at him. The shield buzzed and automatically retracted into his body. He was completely suppressed by the planet god pearl. With a loud boom, a human-shaped hole appeared under Taishan. He sank into the ground. Once Taishan was destroyed, Lin Jun's pressure was greatly reduced. Without a stumbling block, he could finally counterattack. Red, which wanted to save Taishan by attacking. Lin Jun turned around and used Landis's spear. Summer's fire. The phoenix's nature was fire. It was also known as the firebird. In terms of playing with fire, it was second only to the phoenix. Seeing Lin Jun's spear coming at her with flames, Red Witch laughed coldly. Lin Jun, you're just showing off in front of an expert. Is that so? Unfortunately, my axe is bigger. Fall. The 2 streams of flames collided. Under the influence of the 4 elemental flowers, the bright green flames were like a flood, engulfing Red Witch in an instant. The spear followed the flames and went straight for Red Witch's chest. Red Witch felt like she was in a furnace. She was trying her best to defend herself. She felt Lin Jun's spear coming at her. She held the whip with both hands and locked the tip of the spear in a flash. Save me. Lightning and Blade Fury saw that Red, which was in danger, and quickly came to her rescue. Rumble. The four elemental flowers showed their power again. Under the surging of the four elements, Lin Jun's original body appeared in the energy elements. Lin Jun had been waiting for this moment for a long time. As long as he defeated one more person, he would win this battle. However, he had to rely on his original body to fight for this time. The energy elements were just a smokescreen to prevent anyone from seeing the secret of his clone. His original body appeared in the energy elements. Only the few people who were fighting with him could see it. In Lin Jun's plan, it did not matter what they saw. His original body swallowed a divine power pill, and his astral power instantly increased to 71. 2 million. He could unleash 100% of his astral power. After taking the pill, his original body's combat power was almost on par with his clone's. The lotus flashed and blocked Lightning's lightning attack. His original body formed a sword energy in his hand and attacked. Limitless sword technique. This ultimate technique from the God Sealing stage was used. With one strike, it shattered Dao Sha's attack and chopped off one of his arms. Saber Shah had never imagined that a second Lin Jun would appear during the battle. He was caught off guard and allowed Lin Jun to succeed. Before he could cry out in pain, Lin Jun's main body used Falling Star, forcing Saber Shah's cries back into his stomach. Beast binding spiritual chains bind. His original body and his clone worked together better than the others. The beast-binding spiritual chains tied Blade Fury up tightly and threw him toward Fire Qilin's camp. Catch him. All right. Lin Shuang and the others roared and pounced on Blade Fury, who was still struggling to subdue him. Before his elemental power dissipated, his original body had already disappeared and returned to his clone's inner world to continue cultivating. His original body's attack was successful. Lin Jun released his astral power and sent Red Witch, who was still resisting, flying backward. Lightning wanted to chase after him, but Lin Jun turned around and used Autumn Wind. Wind elemental power whizzed out. Together with his spear, he sent Lightning flying far away. He took a big stride forward and swung his spear at Red Witch. Red Witch saw that she was going to die. Her heart turned cold. She looked at Lin Jun with a pitiful expression, hoping that Lin Jun would take pity on her and spare her for the sake of her beauty. Lin Jun sneered and whipped her neck with his spear, knocking her out. The third beast-binding spiritual chains was cast, and Red, which was tied up tightly. Catch. Third one. After taking down Red Witch, Lin Jun attacked Lightning, who had just recovered. This time, Lin Jun finally got his revenge. With a series of fierce attacks, Lightning, who was still majestic just a moment ago, could not fight back at all. Lanta's spear skills were indeed powerful. The last winter's frost was an attack with ice elemental power. The strong freezing air effectively limited Lightning's speed. Under the freezing effect of the ice element, Lightning's speed advantage could no longer be used. In less than 2 minutes, Lightning had been shot by Lin Jun tens of thousands of times. It was only when Lightning's figure was almost unrecognizable that he fell to the ground. Lin Jun stepped on Lightning's back without hesitation. He took out the fourth beast-binding spiritual chain and tied him up like a pig. Catch. Fourth one. Lin Shuang excitedly held Lightning down. The few Fire Qilin youths who were cooperating with him were already very familiar with this. They found a metal rope from somewhere and tied Lightning up so tightly that his eyes could not be seen. After capturing the Lightning, the battle was basically over. Lin Jun walked to the front of the deep pit and retrieved the God Orb. A gravitational force pulled Tai Shan, who was on the verge of death, out of the pit. Hee. The four Fire Qilins working together. Without the ability to fight with a planet above their heads, they are all useless in front of me. The last beast-binding spiritual chain tied Tai Shan up tightly. Lin Jun personally dragged him back to the Fire Qilin tribe. Chapter 814. After capturing Tai Shan, the battle was considered to have ended perfectly. Lin Jun once again disappointed everyone in the state of Qin. No one expected that 10,000 immortal warriors, 10 three-flower warriors, and 5 peak three-flower warriors from the Holy Land would not be able to capture Lin Jun. Instead, they were all captured by Lin Jun. 10 three-flower warriors died in battle. 5 three-flower warriors from the Holy Land were captured, and more than half of the 10,000 immortal warriors died. The remaining ones also ran away. The grand encirclement and suppression operation came to an end. Lin Jun had won a great victory. Moreover, listening to Lin Jun's words, this operation was an act of state preceptor Qiantong against him. The filth between the two of them was probably not over yet. After the battle ended, Lin Jun returned to the gate of the Fire Palace with a few captives. Lin Jun looked around with his knife-like eyes. Suddenly, he took out a few pieces of golden paper. He waved his brush and wrote a bunch of words on it. Then, he took out the Patriarch's golden Qilin seal and stamped it. Lin Chuang, read it out. Lin Chuang walked over and glanced at it. Suddenly, he showed an excited expression and read it out loud. Patriarch Lin Jun has ordered that Elder Li, Elder Wang, and Sima Elder Lao San of our clan were unworthy of the position of elder because they had ill intentions during the battle between the Patriarch and the enemy. Now, the 3 of them are expelled from the Fire Kirin, never to return. With a shake of his hand, the golden paper fell in front of Elder Lao San. Elder Li and the others' faces suddenly turned ashen. From the moment Lin Jun won the battle, they knew that they would not have a good ending. They still hoped that Lin Jun would be soft-hearted and let them go. However, they did not expect that Lin Jun would be so decisive at such a young age. The first thing he did when he returned was to immediately drive them away, leaving no room for negotiation. They looked left and right, hoping that someone would plead for them, but none of the people around them had any intention of pleading for them. Lin Jun's crushing of the enemy just now had indeed shocked the Fire Qilin clan too much. They already recognized this new patriarch very much in their hearts. Of course, they wouldn't offend Lin Jun for a few people who were past their prime. Moreover, looking at Lin Jun's appearance, even if he begged for mercy, it would be useless. Elder Li and the other side. They had been in the clan for hundreds of thousands of years, yet they couldn't compare to Lin Jun, a young man who had just taken over the position of patriarch less than a day ago. Without making any more excuses, they packed up their things and left. Their names would be completely removed from the Fire Kirin. An elder of the Fire Qilin was an existence that could call the wind and summon the rain. Now that Lin Jun held great power, he could expel the 3 of them with a single order. This was the authority of a patriarch. When Elder Li, Lao San, left the Fire Qilin clan, a burst of cheers erupted from the Fire Qilin clan. Especially the young people, their support for Lin Jun had reached a considerable height. They firmly believed that Lin Jun could lead the Fire Kirin to glory. The Fire Kirin's main hall was the essence of the Fire Kirin for hundreds of millions of years. This palace was built from the magma core of a volcano after it cooled down. This magma core not only isolated the heat from the outside world, but also isolated the cold air, allowing the main hall to maintain a warm spring-like temperature. After receiving some important figures in the clan, these Fire Qilins also swore their loyalty to Lin Jun. This process took a full 3 days before they finally had a bit of free time. However, these 3 days weren't in vain. Lin Jun finally had complete control over the Fire Kirin. Lin Jun appointed Lin Chuang as a temporary aide to help him deal with some matters. Patriarch, the few people in the prison should be dealt with. These people are stubborn and unrepentant. They even hope that someone will come and save them. Lin Jun coldly snorted. They are unscrupulous. They know that I won't kill them easily. Instead, they don't care about anything. They only use their spiritual force to protect their spiritual sea to ensure that they won't be controlled by me. They also don't eat anything. They think that I can't do anything to them. Lin Jun let out a long breath. For the past 3 days, he had to go to the prison every night to try to communicate with Jiu Ling and the others. However, these people were controlled by the beast-binding spirit chains and didn't struggle. They just didn't let Lin Jun break their spiritual sea. The rest was up to Lin Jun. They came from the same sect and had all learned an absolute art from the free city's holy land called spirit condensation. Spirit condensation was a move that allowed one's spiritual force to solidify. One couldn't attack others, and others couldn't break one's attack. At least, it was impossible to do at the same level. For 3 consecutive days, Lin Jun didn't succeed in soul-locking even once. However, today, Lin Jun didn't want to delay this matter any longer. Lin Chuang, go and close the door. I want to rest for a few days. I won't see anyone during this time. Understood, Patriarch. I'll go now. Lin Chuang left the Palace of Fire and went to the door to explain to the guards. The door to the hall closed, leaving Lin Jun alone inside. He opened the dimensional universe and connected to the underground prison. Jiuling, Lightning, Red Witch, Blade Shah, and Tai Shan were imprisoned in a prison. They were tightly bound, and the beast-binding spirit chains wrapped around them, imprisoning their souls and wearing down their wills. Lin Jun's goal of capturing these people was very clear. He wanted to lock their souls. These 5 people could be said to be very powerful. If Lin Jun hadn't obtained a clone, with Lin Jun's original strength, he definitely wouldn't have been a match for any of them without taking the God Power pill. The 3 flowers of the Holy Land definitely had unlimited potential. If he was lucky enough in the future, he might even be able to take another step forward. If it weren't for the beast-binding spirit chains, Lin Jun wouldn't have such an idea because these people were too difficult to lock their souls. However, with the beast-binding spirit chains constantly wearing down their wills and spiritual force, Lin Jun had to do this. If I want to lock their souls, my current level of spiritual force is still a bit lacking. However, after such a long time of digesting the medicinal properties, I should be able to absorb spiritual force pills again in 2 months. After Lin Chuang declined all guests, Lin Jun began a new round of cultivation in the Palace of Fire. Master, someone in this dimensional universe has added you as a friend. His name is Qian Tong. Lin Jun, who was preparing to cultivate, was taken aback. He hadn't expected Qian Tong to add him as a friend. What was there to discuss between the two of them? Except, Lin Jun also wanted to see what kind of tricks Qian Tong had up his sleeve. After the verification was accepted, Qian Tong appeared on the screen. Holy Master, you're a rare guest. What advice do you have for me? Qian Tong's face was cold as he calmly said to Lin Jun, Lin Jun, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. I'll give you 2 choices now. Oh, speak. First, the 2 of us end things here. We don't owe each other anything. Second, I will spend all my assets to destroy you, your race, your women, and your family in the new territories. Completely destroy them. Lin Jun's face instantly sank. Holy Master probably doesn't understand what kind of person Lin Jun is. Everyone who threatens me will never have the chance to speak again. Qian Tong was silent for a long time before slowly saying, I'm serious, Lin Jun. Angering a holy master is definitely not a wise choice. You should know that in the Yuan realm, there is nothing that money can't buy. If you can't buy it, it must be because you don't have enough money, and I just happen to be a person with enough money. Lin Jun also took a deep breath. Qian Tong, guard your money well, because you will soon have nothing. Lin Jun, you will regret this. Qian Tong calmly hung up the communication from the dimensional universe, so calm that it was somewhat terrifying. Lin Jun also secretly sounded an alarm in his heart. He didn't make peace with Qian Tong, which meant that they had completely broken off relations. He had to be careful of Qian Tong's revenge. Instead of waiting for you to take the initiative to come to me, I might as well completely destroy all of Qian Tong's businesses in the Qin Empire, leaving nothing behind. Lin Jun also secretly made up his mind. Some things had to be prepared for a rainy day. Qian Tong's main body cultivated his spiritual force, while his avatar studied the stone tablet. For 2 whole months, Lin Jun didn't leave his room, taking frost mist pills every day to dissolve the medicinal effects. After 2 months, he finally resolved all the residual side effects of the spiritual force pills in his body and could take them again. Lin Jun's main body opened his space ring and took out the spiritual force pills he had stored in it. His current spiritual force was at the middle stage of dark gold, and 50% of it was dark gold. If it were anyone else, it would take them at least 1,000 years of hard work to reach the late stage of dark gold. However, for Lin Jun, this was nothing more than a matter of swallowing a spiritual force pill. The spiritual force of these 3-flower Holy Land cultivators was at the dark gold stage, which was also a threshold. It was very difficult for an ordinary 3-flower Holy Land cultivator to make another breakthrough in their spiritual force. At the very least, Lin Jun hadn't seen any 3-flower Holy Land cultivators who had reached the diamond level of spiritual force yet. After adjusting his state of mind, Lin Jun swallowed the spiritual pill in one gulp. A black hole appeared and the pills disappeared, all of them becoming nourishment for the advancement in his spiritual sea. With the infusion of the pill's power, Lin Jun's spiritual force underwent an astonishing change. Originally, the spiritual sea in his body was made up of 2 colors, gold and dark gold, each occupying half of the sea. Lin Jun had also prepared for a long time for this breakthrough in his spiritual power. He felt that the pills he had prepared would at least allow him to advance to the late stage, or even the peak stage. However, he didn't expect the breakthrough to be so fierce this time. Within the spiritual sphere, the divine infant suddenly opened its eyes. Sensing the arrival of a powerful medicinal force, the divine infant actually took the initiative to absorb the medicinal force. Lin Jun had originally planned to break through to the late stage first, but he didn't manage to feed the divine infant's absorption. Fortunately, Lin Jun had made sufficient preparations and swallowed the pills a second time. The divine infant was like a funnel. The spear in its hand shone brightly. Streams of medicinal force surged from all directions and finally gathered on the spear. The medicinal force is still not enough. I'll take a third time then. Seeing that the divine infant had become a huge pill eater, Lin Jun made up his mind and swallowed all the spiritual force pills he had in reserve, wanting to see how far he could advance. This time, the medicinal force finally met the divine infant's requirements. The gold spiritual force on his body, including the spiritual sphere, slowly faded and turned dark gold. 80%, 90%, 95%, 99%, 100%. Dark gold pinnacle. Chapter 8:15. For one's mind power to break through from the middle dark gold realm to the early diamond realm. This was a qualitative leap. If a martial artist's star force was their number 1 combat strength, then their mind power was their number 2. If one's mind power was strong enough, the opponent wouldn't even have a chance to use their star force. With a single mental attack, the battle would be over. Of course, there were some mental defensive treasures that were the nemesis of mental attacks. This was why the use of mind power wasn't that great. But with Lin Jun's diamond-level mind power, if the divine infant were to leave his body, ordinary mental defensive magic tools wouldn't be able to resist it. The only exception would be a spirit treasure that could defend against it. But where would one find a spirit treasure that could defend one's mind? At the very least, Lin Jun hadn't seen anyone with a spirit treasure that could defend one's mind so far. Thus, as long as one's mind power didn't surpass Lin Jun's, they wouldn't be able to resist him. After his mind power reached the diamond realm, Lin Jun's strength had imperceptibly risen by a great deal. After advancing, Lin Jun didn't immediately head to the prison. This was because he felt that he could make another small breakthrough and reach the 8th level of the World King realm. He simply stayed in the Palace of Fire and cultivated for another half a month. Then, Lin Jun finally broke through to the 8th level of the World King realm. An 8th level World King star force had officially reached 50 million. It had been 3 months since he left the Holy Land. It would be difficult for him to break through to the 9th level of the World King realm before returning. And in these 3 months, Lin Jun's avatar had meditated on the 4th diagram of the Shadowless Steps. It had also comprehended nearly half of the 5th diagram. There were a total of 100 footprints on the 5th diagram. If he wanted to completely meditate on it, he wouldn't be able to do so in half a year. After leaving the Palace of Fire, Lin Jun headed to the underground prison. After passing through the spiraling steps, he arrived at the underground prison, which was located under the volcano behind the Palace of Fire. It was nearly 10,000 meters underground. After arriving at the prison, the first person Lin Jun went to see was Jiu Ling. The 9 spirits were tied up in a cell. Every day, it did not struggle and just stayed there calmly. This was because the more they struggled, the tighter the beast-binding spirit chains would bind them. In his heart, he was still hoping that someone would come and save him. Perhaps one day Lin Jun would be killed, and he might still have the hope of being released. As a martial artist, he had enough time and patience to wait for that day to come. This was because he could tell that Lin Jun didn't seem to want to kill them, which made him fearless. He ate and drank every day, and when he was bored, he would daydream. After all, warriors in the 3-flower realm wouldn't die unless they were killed. However, Lin Jun's arrival shattered all of this. Jiu Ling, you no longer have a chance. Accept your fate. Lin Jun didn't waste any time talking nonsense and directly sent out a spiritual attack. A diamond light forcefully broke through the other party's spiritual condensation, and the spirit chains forced their way in. Jiu Ling screamed and rolled around, trying to break free. However, at this point, Lin Jun wouldn't give him a chance to turn things around. The power of the spirit chains gradually increased, and under the suppression of the beast-binding spirit chains, Jiu Ling couldn't escape at all. In less than 3 minutes, the spirit chains were completed. The beast-binding spirit chains disappeared and turned into a circle of light, remaining outside of Jiu Ling's spiritual sea. A martial artist who had their spirit chains locked had a chance to break free, and that was when they broke through to the next realm. The beast-binding spirit chains were used for this purpose. Even if the person whose spirit was locked broke through, they would still be under the control of their master. If the person whose spirit was locked tried to resist, their spiritual sea would be crushed, and their nascent soul would be forcibly strangled, turning them into an idiot. Only someone like Lin Jun, whose nascent soul had a weapon, could break free from the binding of the beast-binding spirit chains. Unfortunately, Jiu Ling couldn't. After being controlled, he no longer had any thoughts of resisting and became Lin Jun's most loyal servant. Lin Jun was also very happy to have Jiu Ling as his helper. Jiu Ling's strength was actually not inferior to his. In fact, if his main body didn't consume the God Power Pill, he wouldn't be a match for Jiu Ling and the others at all. The 3 flowers of the Holy Land at their peak could only be described as powerful. If it wasn't for the nearby skills, Lin Jun wouldn't have been able to take down Jiu Ling even if he had a clone. The opponent's 9-headed bite was almost unstoppable, but he just had to meet the invulnerable Lin Jun, which was why he ended up in such a miserable state. Jiu Ling swears to follow Master to the death. Jiu Ling expressed his loyalty to Lin Jun. Recover from your injuries well. I'll need you guys soon. Jiu Ling had been injured during the battle with Lin Jun and hadn't had the chance to recuperate. Now that they were on the same side, Lin Jun gave him a pill to recover quickly. Jiu Ling accepted the pill and followed Lin Jun to the other cells. Taishan, Blade Shah, these were not difficult to subdue. When they arrived at Guang Duan's room, Jiu Ling even grabbed Guang Duan's neck. Be obedient and don't move. Let Master subdue you, and you'll know that I'm doing this for your own good. Lin Jun smiled and did the same thing, controlling Guang Duan's soul. When Red Witch was here, this woman had tried to seduce Lin Jun. Unfortunately, she was beaten up by a few of her traitorous companions and immediately stopped. Lin Jun easily controlled her as well. If it wasn't for the beast-binding spirit chains, it wouldn't be easy to control 5 people. However, with this thing, he could easily control a few more. After subduing 5 of the 3 flowers of the Holy Land at their peak, Lin Jun finally let out a sigh of relief. There is no doubt about the combat power of these 5 people, and they had all entered the 3-flower stage for many years. Who knew when they would give him a huge surprise and make a breakthrough? After letting the 5 of them rest for 5 days, Lin Jun gave them an order after they had fully recovered. That was to go to the Great Qin Empire and wipe out all of Qian Tong's businesses in the Great Qin Empire. If anyone resisted, kill without mercy. The Great Qin Empire's businesses could provide Qiantong with a steady stream of money. Lin Jun didn't want this person's wealth to continue accumulating. In the primordial realm, wealth was equal to power. Cutting off his source of income was undoubtedly a drastic measure. Something big happened in the Great Qin Empire. The 5 people who had besieged Lin Jun had actually attacked the Imperial Advisor's residence. The Imperial Advisor's residence had many guests under Qiantong, and there was no lack of 3 Flower Realm cultivators among them. However, under the attacks of Jiu Ling and the others, they had no power to resist. Not to mention the performance of Guang Duan and the others. Just Jiu Ling alone was enough. A huge 9-headed lion appeared in the air. Its 9 huge mouths opened and began to bite and devour endlessly. Unlike Lin Jun's black hole beast, Jiu Ling's 9 heads bit everywhere. The small ones were swallowed in one bite, while the powerful ones were besieged by several heads. More than half of the destruction of the Imperial Advisor's residence was due to Jiu Ling. In the air, Jiu Ling could summon clouds and rain with a flip of her hand. She vented her anger at Lin Jun and killed all of Qiantong's guests. Guang Duan and the others were also extremely powerful. Their strength was only slightly weaker than Jiu Ling's. The 4 of them rampaged all the way, leaving corpses everywhere. They killed everyone in the Imperial Advisor's residence and destroyed all of Qiantong's businesses. All of Qiantong's shops, medicine shops, and alchemy rooms were razed to the ground and turned into ruins. It wasn't that no one tried to stop this process, but ordinary people couldn't stop the 3 flowers of the Holy Land. No matter how many people came, they were all killed. People asked the imperial family to send troops, but the Qin Emperor only gave a single sentence. This was a dispute between Holy Land cultivators, and the imperial family had no right to interfere. Everyone knew who Jiu Ling and the others represented. Qiantong had caused trouble for Lin Jun several times, so it was normal for Lin Jun to fight back. If they wanted to move against Lin Jun, ordinary cultivators and the imperial family didn't have the qualifications to do so. Holy Land cultivators and non-Holy Land cultivators belonged to 2 different levels. Although Qiantong was an imperial advisor, his more important identity was that of a Holy Land cultivator. If the imperial family didn't take action, the people of the Qin Empire couldn't save Qiantong's homes and businesses. They could only watch as Jiu Ling and the others razed all of Qiantong's businesses to the ground. After taking away everything and killing everyone, Qiantong's disciples and guests were all wiped out. There was absolutely no possibility of a comeback in a short time. In the face of such bloody means, the people of the Qin Empire shuddered. They hated Lin Jun, but they were more and more afraid of Lin Jun. This guy was simply an unkillable cockroach, and the more they fought, the stronger he became. They couldn't stop him from entering the Holy Land, and they couldn't stop him from becoming the Patriarch. Imperial Advisor Lin Jun was a powerful existence, and he had hundreds of thousands of guests, but they were all killed by Lin Jun. After Jiu Ling and the others became Lin Jun's subordinates, there were too many things that Lin Jun didn't even need to do. Now that he had become the Patriarch of the Fire Kirin, no one could do anything to him. There was also an episode this time. A group that lived in the Qin Empire and scolded Lin Jun the most was found by Light Blind. Offending a Holy Land cultivator was a crime, but most Holy Land cultivators had a high profile and didn't want to lower themselves to the level of non-Holy Land cultivators. But Lin Jun was different. He didn't have a good impression of the people of the Qin Empire, so he specifically told Light Blind to do this. This group of people was a group of mercenaries, and some of them even knew Light Blind. Light Blind found the location of the dimensional universe and hunted them down, slaughtering these hundreds of people. When Light Blind pulled this string of heads and flew across the sky, the voices that scolded Lin Jun on the Qin Empire forum decreased for the first time. In fact, Lin Jun couldn't be blamed for the Star of Divine Punishment. Since they were enemies, of course, they had a fight. It was just that the people of the Qin Empire were psychologically unbalanced. The more important reason was that Lin Jun, this bastard, was vengeful. He didn't even let go of the people who scolded people on the internet. With the existence of the dimensional universe, although people could vent at will, if someone with power wanted to pursue the matter, they would be able to find you through the dimensional universe. This was the universal real name system. The third. For 2 consecutive months, Light Blind and the others did nothing but look for the people who scolded Lin Jun the most. If they found them, they would kill them without mercy. Kill them. 3 months later, the voices that scolded Lin Jun in the Qin Empire finally subsided. Chapter 817. Winter had arrived at Skyridge. After a snowstorm, the temperature dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. The doors of the fire palace creaked open and Lin Jun walked out. As the doors opened, a heat wave accompanied by faint starlight gushed out, causing the surrounding cold air to recede. The cold and hot air collided, forming a visible layer of air. After stretching his limbs, Lin Jun's face was filled with joy. He didn't expect that just as he was about to return to the Holy Land, he would be able to digest the medicinal efficacy and finally obtain the opportunity to devour it again, allowing him to advance to the 9th level World King realm. His astral power increased by another 2 million, and his body's astral power reached 52 million. This was no longer the figure of a World King. Even the immortal realm didn't have such a figure. This was equivalent to a good 3-flower boundary. Looking around, the volcano hadn't erupted recently, and the temperature had dropped. The fire Kirans felt uncomfortable and stayed at home, unwilling to go out. Lightning, and the other 4 spirits were arranged by Lin Jun to guard the perimeter of the volcano, becoming the secret protectors of the Kiran clan. After leaving, Lin Chuang was already waiting outside. Patriarch, recently, our clan's population has increased by nearly 1 level. This is an unprecedented situation. I have already heard the news. The new fire Chilants all came because of your reputation. Lin Chuang's face was filled with excitement. The fire Kiran's population was small. It was thanks to Lin Jun that they were able to gradually grow. Lin Jun nodded. The fire Kiran was indeed thriving. This was something he was happy to see. Remember what I said? Gather the elites of the clan and cultivate. Don't slack off. The next time the Holy Land opens, more people from our clan can enter. Without the support of the Holy Land's martial artists, a clan can't develop. I understand, Patriarch, but to enter the Holy Land, don't we need a clan's recommendation? In the past, we only had 1 spot. Lin Jun smiled. As you said, that was in the past. Students of the heavenly class of the Holy Land also have the qualifications to be recommended. There are 8 new students, and the 1 ranked 8th will have 1 recommendation. The 1 ranked 1st will have 8 recommendations. When the time comes, I will recommend suitable people to enter. Lin Chuang's eyes lit up when he heard that. He was also at the peak of the longevity realm. His strength was not bad. Entering the Holy Land was the yearning of every warrior. Of course, he wanted to enter as well. Lin Jun patted him on the shoulder. Cultivate well. If you can enter the 3 flowers before the next Holy Land assessment, I will recommend you to participate. Lin Chuang immediately nodded. It had never crossed his mind that Lin Jun would not enter the heavenly class. From his point of view, the clan leader was omnipotent. Entering the heaven class was just a matter of reaching out his hand. All right, there's nothing much going on in the clan recently. I'm going back to the Holy Land. It had already been 10 months since Lin Jun returned to the clan. It was time to return to the Holy Land. In these 10 months, Lin Jun had advanced to the 8th level of the World King. His spiritual power had reached the diamond level. Moreover, he had comprehended the 5th diagram of the shadowless step. This progress could be said to be unprecedented. He had also managed the Kiran clan completely. The Alchemist Guild and the Kiran clan had signed an agreement to purchase medicine, guaranteeing the supply of pills for the Kiran clan's disciples. The Fire Kiran clan had a lot of money. However, their relationship with the Alchemist Guild was not good. Therefore, they could not purchase the truly good medicines. But with Lin Jun, there was no problem. Lin Jun was the great elder of the Alchemist Guild and had a very good relationship with the president. Not only could he guarantee the supply of medicines, but he could also get preferential treatment. With the pills, it was believed that in time, the Fire Kirin would produce many talents. In addition, the safety of the Fire Kirin clan was no longer a problem. Lin Jun had left Lightning and the other four spirit galactic beasts in the Fire Kirin clan. If anything happened, they could immediately contact Lin Jun. Patriarch, don't worry. There are no problems in the clan for the time being. Lin Jun nodded. He did not inform the others in the Fire Kirin. With a thought, Zhu Ling came out from his inner world. After coming out, Zhu Ling rolled on the spot, and a 9-headed lion that looked like a giant beast appeared. On the surface, Zhu Ling looked like a huge lion. However, under its long mane, 8 small heads were hidden. When needed, they would reveal a ferocious look. When choosing a mount, Lin Jun hesitated for a while between Jiu Ling and Lightning. In the end, he chose Jiu Ling. Jiu Ling's speed was slightly slower than the SARFT, but it was much stronger. Moreover, Lightning was one of the 4 spirits. If it was separated from Red Witch and the others, it would not be good. Besides, Jiu Ling's speed was also very fast. At the limit of sublight speed, it was at least twice as fast as the 2-headed demon dragon. Lin Jun leaped lightly and sat on Jiu Ling's back. Jiu Ling's mane fluttered, forming a protective layer. Jiu Ling said to Lin Jun, "Master, when Jiu Ling can advance, I will also be able to reach the speed of light. When that time comes, if Master is willing to roam the primordial realm, Jiu Ling can bring Master along." Hee. All right, then I'll be waiting to hitch a ride with you. After receiving Lin Jun's encouragement, Jiu Ling immediately became excited. It spread its claws and stepped into the clouds, heading straight for the meteor lake. Lin Chuang waved his hand on the ground. Lightning and the other 4 spirits released their star power in 4 directions of the volcano, bidding farewell to their master. In the sacred land, a group of warriors gathered in front of the Tristrimsa Heaven Pagoda. After nearly a year of cultivation, a large number of people who could successfully pass the pagoda had emerged in the sacred land. Among the new students, the person with the highest ranking was the heaven-class disciple, Dongfangyu. Dongfangyu was currently in first place among all the new students who had passed the 5th level of the pagoda. However, Dongfangyu didn't look very happy, because a large list had been pulled out in front of the sacred land. This was the new student list. Not only did it have the Meteor Lake Sacred Land, but it also had the Twin Tree Garden, Freedom City, and Soul Locking Platform. This was the rule. After all the new students entered the Sacred Land, there would be a large list in the annual assessment. All the new students of the 4 Sacred Lands would be gathered together to see who the most outstanding person belonged to. One had to know that this was for all the Sacred Lands of the Primordial Realm. It was a great honor to be able to make it onto the list. The top 10 of the list all had huge rewards. The rewards were extremely special things called Godstones. Many people in the Primordial Realm didn't know about Godstones. It wasn't even considered a currency and couldn't be circulated. However, the higher the level of the martial artist, the more they knew about Godstones. The origin of Godstones was the evolution of universe crystals. When a martial artist surpassed the 3-flower realm, they would enter the divine transformation realm. After passing the divine transformation realm, one would become a true god. This was the transformation from a martial artist to a god. The divine transformation was the change of spiritual power, called spiritual transformation. The change of the world and the body was called divine transformation. The change of the world stone was called God's stone transformation. After completing the 3rd level of divine transformation, a martial artist would transform into a true god. They would stand high above the masses, overlooking all living beings. And the only place where God stones were produced was a God's stone transformation realm martial artist. After failing to become a god, the God stone would shatter, and the martial artist would forever lose the chance to become a god. The weaker ones would directly perish, and the stronger ones might have the chance to retain their bodies and become a demigod. Every God stone was a massive source of energy. A single God stone weighed a kilogram. Not only could God stones continuously replenish the strength of a divine transformation realm martial artist, but they could also erupt with divine strength. A single godstone could allow a martial artist to have a combat strength that doubled. Of course, very few people were willing to use godstones like this. This sort of thing was far too rare. It would only appear at the late divine transformation realm. Thus, it was extremely precious. Godstones weren't currency, but they had a greater purchasing power than currency. The exchange rate between godstones and the primordial realm's currency was 100 million. A single godstone was 100 billion primordial realm currency. Moreover, this sort of thing was nearly priceless. In truth, the transaction price would definitely be higher than this. This time, the 4 holy lands were able to take out godstones as a reward. This caused all the martial artists to be excited. The first place of the overall ranking would receive 2 godstones. As for the remaining 2nd to 10th place, they would all receive a single godstone. This sort of competition was only held during the first year of new students. Every holy land attached great importance to it. Today was the day of the Holy Land's examination. Starfall Lake's 33 Heavens Pagoda was surging with people. The examination was about to begin. 5th young master Jean Nuaw frowned as he looked at the endless stream of students rushing towards the pagoda. Dongfang Yu was the first to enter the stage, but his performance wasn't good. Although he had passed the 5th level, he was quickly defeated by the 6th level's Heaven Master. According to past experience, those that could pass the 6th level could easily enter the top 10. Those that could pass the 5th level also had a chance of entering the top 10. But they needed to have a high completion rate. The virtual characters in the 33 Heavens Pagoda had HP. Only by eliminating all of the virtual characters' HP would one be considered to have passed. Dongfang Yu had only consumed 20% of the Heaven Master's HP. There was no hope for him. In the top 10 rankings, if any of the 4 holy lands could obtain 3 spots, then it would be considered a success. If they obtained 2 spots, then it would be considered a failure. However, Dongfang Yu, whom Jean Nuaw had placed high hopes on, didn't perform well. This time, he might not even be able to obtain 2 spots. If he only obtained 1 spot, then it would be a disgrace. The results of the pagoda came out one after another. Another seated contestant of the Heaven class, Sun Yidao, had also reached the 6th level with a completion rate of 33%. He had only completed 1/3 of the pagoda. If it was in the previous years, he might have had a chance to obtain 10th place. But this year, Jean Nuaw shook his head slightly. At this time, news from the other holy lands came one after another. Free City's Yang Yi had reached the 6th level with a completion rate of 51%, ranking 1st. Twin Trees Gardens Zhongjing had reached the 6th level with a completion rate of 49%, ranking 2nd. Soul Locking Platform's Wu Qing had reached the 6th level with a completion rate of 45%, ranking 3rd. Chapter 8:18. In the chat group Ji Nuaw was in, Zhang Lang smiled and said, "Brother Ji Nuaw, your Fallen Star Lake's results this time don't seem to be too good." Ji Nuaw said, "Now the 4th and 5th in the top 10 are our people. 2 spots are considered to have completed the basic task. As long as we get 1 more spot, our results will be above the average of the 4 holy lands." The 4 holy lands had 10 spots, and the average was 5 spots. Most of the time, it was 2 or 3 spots, or 2 or 2 spots. Sometimes, if a holy land got 4 spots, it would be especially outstanding. Doubletree Garden once got 6 spots, which was the highest record in history. However, the other holy lands did not fall behind, and more or less got spots. Zhang Lang chuckled mischievously. "Looks like Brother Jean Nuaw has a card up his sleeve. However, you have to be careful. Whether it is our Free City, the Twin Tree Garden, or the Soul Locking Altar, there are experts who have yet to appear." Of course, Jean Nuaw was aware of this. This was also the main reason why he was worried that Dongfang Yu and Sunny Dao would not be able to stay in the top 10. However, he could not reveal anything now. Jean Nuaw's expression did not change. "We also have experts who have not appeared yet. I know. Fallen Angel Michelle. But as far as I know, Michelle has gone out to travel. I don't know if she can make it in time for this competition. Don't let any accidents happen." At this time, Doubletree Garden's 4th Miss Fong Fei said, No matter how you fight, you won't get more spots than our DoubleTree garden. Do you dare to bet? Neither Jin Nua nor Zhang Lang was willing to bet with Feng Fei. DoubleTree Garden was the most mysterious of the four holy lands. They had always been the strongest. Whether it was the number of times they got first or the number of spots, they were the most. Seeing that no one wanted to bet with her, Feng Fei did not say anything. Zhang Lang continued to say to Jin Nua, "Oh right, where's that Lin Jun of yours? I remember that we had a bet about this kid. Do you still remember?" "Of course I remember. Lin Jun is coming back. Didn't we add a follow-up to our bet? Back then, we agreed that if Lin Jun could pass the 5th level, he could comprehend your Holy Land stone tablet. If he could pass the 6th level, then you had to change all the stone tablets to the heaven level. If he could pass the 7th level, Lin Jun could choose any stone tablet, right?" "That's right. That's what I agreed to. However, if Lin Jun can't complete it, I can also find a free city disciple to comprehend the stone tablet of your Fallen Star Lake. It's a deal." "That's good." "Haha, Gino, you're on your own now. If the Holy Land of Fallen Star Lake dies in your hands, things will be interesting." "Ha!" After that, Zhang Lang didn't say anything else. Jin Nua left the Dimensional Universe's chat group. Zhang Lang's words made him feel slightly uneasy. Hang Zero. This word lingered in his heart, and he had a bad feeling about it. That won't happen. With Michelle around, there's no way we'll lose anything. The trial of the 33 Heavens Pagoda was still ongoing. One by one, the students walked in and out. Most of them didn't look too good. The 33 Heavens Pagoda was too difficult. After cultivating for a year, almost half of the Desolate class cultivators could not even pass the first level. Even if it was Hong Ban, many people would be eliminated on the first level. Most of the students from the 2 classes in the universe would stop at the 2nd level. There were only a few who could reach the 3rd level. As for the Yellow class and Xin class, many of them could pass the 3rd level. However, no one could pass the 4th level. After all, they had only cultivated for a short period of time. It was already not easy for them to reach this stage. To pass the 4th level and reach the 5th level, only the Heaven class and Earth class students could possibly do it. Moreover, most of the Earth class students couldn't even reach the 5th level. For example, Dongfang Yu and Sun Yidao had reached the 6th level. So far, only the 2 of them had reached the 6th level. However, what wasn't optimistic was that their rankings had dropped to the 7th and 8th place. Another expert had appeared in each of the 3 holy lands, and their completion rate was higher than theirs. Some of the people who had finished their trial left the stone tablet comprehension area and went to the living area to rest. This was like an exam, and there were students. They had cultivated hard for a year just for this day. Now that the results were out, regardless of whether it was good or bad, they had a rare moment of rest. These people came to the front of the alchemy room. There was a commercial area nearby where they could buy some things. In front of the alchemy room, Qian Tong had set up a stone table and stone benches for people to rest. The environment was good. When there was nothing to do, everyone liked to gather here. On the table, there were drinks and food provided by Qian Tong for free. As a Saint-class alchemist, Qian Tong didn't lack money. He had always been good at winning people's hearts. The cultivators sat here and watched the rest of the pagoda. "Everyone, I have a bad feeling. In this 4 Holy Lands tournament, I'm afraid our Fallen Star Lake will have some trouble." "Don't say that. There are still a few people from the Heaven class who haven't appeared yet. No one will know the result until the end. Don't be too optimistic. Michelle from the Heaven class hasn't returned yet. The strength of the others seems to be inferior to Sun Yidao and Dongfang Yu. Seeing that the 2 of them are about to be squeezed out of the top 10, if something happens to Michelle, there might really be a dark horse in this pagoda. It's really hard to say. Hey, senior brother Huang Zun, your performance this time wasn't very good either," a profound class cultivator said to Huang Zun. Huang Zun had reached the 5th floor of the pagoda this time. Currently, he was still number 1 in the Earth class, but he was definitely not fated to be in the top 10. Hearing the words of the profound class cultivator, Huang Zun snorted coldly. "Even if I'm not very good, I'm still number 1 in the Earth class. I'm much better than someone like you, who can't even enter the Earth class." After the incident with Lin Jun, Huang Zun kept a low profile. However, he still couldn't bear to hear sarcastic words. The profound class cultivator choked, and his face changed. Seeing that there were so many people around, Huang Zun didn't dare to do anything to him. He simply said loudly, "What's the point of comparing with me? If you have the ability, compete with Lin Jun. I think his results will definitely be better than yours." Lin Jun was Huang Zun's reverse scale. Hearing the words of the profound class cultivator, his face suddenly turned cold. "Brat, if you have the guts, say it again." Seeing that Huang Zun was about to flip out, the profound class cultivator suddenly didn't dare to speak. He was really worried that Huang Zun would go berserk here and beat him up. That would be too embarrassing. At this time, Qiantong walked out of the alchemy room and placed a plate of fruits on the stone table. "Hee, this little brother, your words are inappropriate. How can that little brat Lin Jun compare with Huang Zun? I don't think he has the ability to break through the tower at all. Look at the time. The competition is already halfway through, and he hasn't come back yet. Maybe he won't come back at all." Everyone knew about the filth between Qiantong and Lin Jun, but at this time, no one spoke up for Lin Jun. In the Holy Land, Lin Jun was an anomaly. As a world king, he was promoted to the Earth class, which made many people unhappy. Not to mention that he was expelled by the 5 young lords. What could he do after wandering outside for 10 months? It was simply a joke. With that kind of energy, it was better to have a good relationship with Qiantong. Maybe he could buy some pills at a cheap price. "Say, Master, how much are you selling Saint Grade pills? Sell us a little." The profound class cultivator said. Qiantong smiled and shook his head. "Saint Grade pills are too rare. Even for this old master, it's not easy to refine them. I can't sell them for ordinary money. If you want to buy Saint Grade pills, you'll have to bring divine stones." "Isn't the requirement too high? No one here has a divine level stone. Where are we going to get that thing?" Qiantong chuckled. "Then my Saint Grade pills aren't easy to get. For example, my life-restoring golden pill. As long as a person isn't cut to pieces, as long as their body is still intact, even if they've been dead for 3 years, I can pull them back from the gates of hell. Tell me, isn't such a good thing worth a few divine stones?" At this time, Huang Zun said, "If you want to get divine stones, it's very difficult to get them in the primordial realm. Only by going to the endless starry sea and going to those dangerous places will you have a little hope. Don't get your hopes up. In any case, you have endless lives, so why not just enjoy life obediently?" The cultivators didn't say anything, but since they had joined the Holy Land, it meant that none of them were willing to be ordinary. If they wanted to enjoy life, then they could just cultivate to the immortal realm. Why would they pursue the 3 flowers and divine transformation? Cultivators with dreams in their hearts couldn't be suppressed by too many people if they wanted to live comfortably. Otherwise, their lives wouldn't be guaranteed. If an immortal cultivator's head was cut off, they would still die. Those who truly didn't die were gods. Therefore, no one took Huang Zun's words seriously, but they didn't want to argue with him. Everyone was focused on this competition and wanted to see what kind of result the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land could achieve. Perhaps the person who paid the most attention was Qiantong. After his last failure, Qiantong had temporarily laid low. He hadn't given up on taking revenge on Lin Jun, but was waiting for the right opportunity. If he didn't make a move, then he would definitely take Lin Jun's life. Qiantong was already preparing. However, he still had to wait and see. Lin Jun would definitely come back this time. He wanted to see what kind of result Lin Jun could achieve before formulating a specific strategy. While everyone was talking, the first cultivator to pass the 6th floor appeared. Feng Qingwan, a cultivator from Twin Trees Garden, successfully passed the 6th floor and defeated the Heaven Master. She also completed 35% of the challenge in the 7th floor before being eliminated. As a result, Feng Qingwan became the temporary number 1 of the 4 Holy Lands. With this result, she wouldn't dare say that she would still be number 1, but she would definitely be in the top 10 or even top 5. Before everyone had time to be shocked, another powerhouse appeared on the soul-locking altar in Free City. Free City's Qin Fei passed the 6th floor and completed 30% of the 7th floor, placing him in 2nd place. Soul-locking altars Lu Qinho passed the 6th floor and completed 27% of the 7th floor, placing him in 3rd place. Chapter 819. After Feng Qingluan reached the top, the 3 great holy lands each occupied 3 spots in the top 10 rankings. As for Fallen Star Lake, they didn't perform well. Only one person entered the rankings and could drop out at any time. At this time, people finally realized that Fallen Star Lake might really become a joke this time. They might even drop out of the top 10 rankings. Some impatient cultivators began to contact Fallen Angel Michelle. At this time, only Michelle could turn the tide. Fallen Star Lake could afford to lose, but they had to obtain a ranking. They couldn't allow a situation like this to happen. Since the establishment of the 4 great holy lands, no holy land had ever dropped out of the rankings. If this really happened, it would be a huge blow to Fallen Star Lake. Jean Newell might not even have the face to meet the master of Fallen Star Lake. However, no one answered Michelle's call from the dimensional universe. No one knew what he was doing. Compared to Michelle, very few people placed their hopes on Lin Jun. Lin Jun's performance in the Fire Kirin was very outstanding. He even defeated a few veteran Holy Land cultivators. However, in the eyes of others, Lin Jun must have relied on the power of pills and that mysterious bead. These things couldn't be used in the 33 Heavens Pagoda. Without these things, Lin Jun's strength will be reduced by half. He wouldn't be able to do much. The competition continued. As time passed, the majority of the cultivators had finished challenging the pagoda. As for Twin Tree Garden, another cultivator entered the top 10. He was ranked 4th, completely squeezing Sun Yidao out of the rankings. Twin Tree Garden had already occupied 4 spots, displaying their strength. Not only were the new students paying attention to this pagoda challenge, even the older students were paying attention. However, after seeing the performance of Fallen Star Lake's new students, the older students shook their heads. The quality of this batch of new students is too poor. This was the evaluation given by the older students. As everyone waited, the battles in the 33 Heavens Pagoda came to an end. The first to complete the challenge was the Soul Locking Platform. At the last moment, the Soul Locking Platform's trump card appeared. Lu Yunfei from the Soul Locking Platform's Sky class successfully challenged the 6th level. He completed 50% of the 7th level and jumped to 1st place. However, they didn't occupy 1st place for too long. Free City Xiao Lai completed 65% of the 7th level and took 1st place. Now, only Twin Tree Garden and Fallen Star Lake hadn't completed all the challenges. The dolphin under his feet continued to accelerate, and Lin Jun was about to rush out of the fog. This time, it could be considered a small accident. Originally, he thought that he would be able to quickly pass through the fog area by riding on the 9 spirits. The 9 spirits also said that even if there was fog, his 9 heads would be able to suck it away and guarantee that they would reach the Fallen Star Lake very quickly. However, he didn't expect that Jiuling would actually get lost. After being delayed for nearly a day, by the time Lin Jun returned to the right track on the Dolphin, the Holy Land's Tower Challenge was about to end. Jiuling, if you delay my matters this time, I'll skin you alive. Lin Jun gnashed his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. He could only make the Dolphin go faster. Just as Lin Jun was about to rush out of the fog, he suddenly felt a spatial energy fluctuation nearby. Then, with a plop, it was as if something had fallen into the water. Could it be a water monster? Lin Jun was secretly on guard. The lake monsters in the Fallen Star Lake were very powerful. They could even devour a 3-flower martial artist. He had to be careful. However, Lin Jun soon felt that something was different. After something fell into the water, there was the sound of water ripples. The sound of the water ripples wasn't loud. It was the same as the dolphin's water ripples under his feet. It's actually someone from the Fallen Star Lake. Lin Jun immediately drove the dolphin in the direction of the water ripples. In the fog, there was a vague spatial passage that had just disappeared. Someone must have used a wormhole egg to return here. Seeing the wormhole disappear, Lin Jun felt a little distressed. There were 2 types of wormhole eggs. One type could be used across realms and could be used to travel from the primordial realm to the new territories. The ones in the primordial realm were cheaper, but the price of one was tens of billions. To be able to use a wormhole egg to escape meant that this person's situation was extremely dangerous. Michelle. After getting closer, Lin Jun was suddenly shocked. In the fog, Michelle was lying on the back of a dolphin, motionless. The dolphin was slowly swaying its tail and was following its instincts to head to the Picking Stars Island. If Lin Jun had any friends in the Fallen Star Lake, Michelle was definitely one of them. Although the two of them didn't have much of friendship, they felt that they had a good temper and could be friends. Michelle was obviously injured. Her black wings were pulled down weakly. Her body was covered in blood and wounds. She looked miserable, and it was unknown how she got there. Driving the dolphin to swim over, Lin Jun pulled Michelle over using gravity. As they moved, a sudden chill came over them. Lin Jun raised his hand and put Michelle into his inner world. At the same time, a sword aura burst out from his hand. Slash! A spray of black blood bloomed in the air. A black beetle bigger than a watermelon was killed by Lin Jun in the air. Although he killed the beetle in one hit, Lin Jun's heart was in turmoil. It was such a small beetle, and it was so difficult for him to kill it with his sword aura. One should know that Lin Jun's astral power had exceeded 50 million. He could probably kill an ordinary immortal level being at this level. Although an immortal level being was nothing, this was just a small beetle. The beetle's corpse fell, and a large number of beetles appeared in the fog again. This is bad. Where did these darn things come from? These beetles were each the size of a watermelon. Their shells seemed to be made of metal, and their terrifying mouth parts protruded out. Nobody wanted to taste the taste of being bitten by them. Moreover, these beetles covered the sky and covered the earth. There were thousands of them. When these beetles saw Lin Jun, they were like flies that saw blood. They buzzed and rushed over. Their aura was terrifying. Lin Jun's original body entered his inner world immediately. His clone appeared and activated his armor. He also put the dolphin into his inner world to prevent it from being eaten by the beetles. After activating his armor, Lin Jun began to use the Qilin spear. Although these beetles were powerful, they were within the range of the Qilin spear's killing power. One shot, one kill. There was no need to aim. Hundreds of beetles were killed by Lin Jun every second. The beetles pounced on Lin Jun, but they could not bite through the armor. They were completely suppressed by Lin Jun. They could not use their advantage in numbers at all. About a minute later, the last beetle was shot down. Lin Jun let out a long breath. It was all thanks to the Qilin spear and Qilin spear that these terrifying beetles were suppressed. If it was his original body, he would have been eaten into a pile of bones by now. Lin Jun released Michelle from his inner world. Sensing that she was on the verge of death, he immediately took out a healing pill and fed it to her. After temporarily stabilizing Michelle's injuries, Lin Jun brought her straight to Picking Stars Island. After rushing out of the fog, he decided to let Jiuling appear. With a few leaps, they reached Picking Stars Island. Lin Jun handed Michelle over to the servants and told them to bring her back to her residence. Without saying anything, he rushed straight to the 33 Heavens Pagoda. Twin Tree Gardens Pagoda Challenge had also ended. Just like Freedom City and Soul Locking Platform, Twin Tree Gardens' last contestant was their ace martial artist, a monk called Moses. He had actually reached 90% completion rate on the 7th floor, leaping to first place. Currently, the overall ranking was as follows: Twin Tree Gardens Moses, 2nd place Freedom City Xiao Lai, 3rd place Soul Locking Platforms Lu Yunfei, 4th place Twin Tree Gardens Feng Qingwan, 5th place Twin Tree Gardens Zhou Zimei. Among the top 10, Twin Tree Garden occupied 5 spots, Soul Locking Platform occupied 3 spots, and Freedom City occupied 2 spots. Fallen Star Lake was still empty. It did not occupy a single spot. Jean Nua's brows were tightly furrowed. She was in an extremely bad mood. Within the dimensional universe, she received a message from a servant saying that Michelle had returned. Her injuries were not light, and she could no longer participate in the 33 Heavens Pagoda Challenge. This news quickly spread among the martial artists of Fallen Star Lake. The martial artists of Fallen Star Lake who originally held on to hope were now in despair. Michelle was injured and could not participate. Fallen Star Lake no longer had anyone left. Previously, in order to wait for Michelle's return, the martial artists of Fallen Star Lake did not rush through the pagoda. They were slightly dragging it out. However, after hearing this news, those martial artists did not wait any longer. They all began to challenge the pagoda. Results appeared one after another. However, none of them were able to raise their spirits. By the time the last Heaven-class martial artist finished challenging the pagoda, Fallen Star Lake no longer had anyone left. In Jean Nua's chat group, Zhang Lang chuckled. Jean Nua, what's wrong with Fallen Star Lake? Could it be that my prediction was right? If that's the case, then as the fifth young master of the Sacred Land, you have quite a bit of responsibility. Faced with Zhang Lang's ridicule, Jean Nua gently rubbed her fingers a few times. If our Sacred Land really has a situation of 0, I will personally ask for forgiveness from my teacher. Brother Zhang, you don't have to worry. How can I not worry? We have a bet regarding Lin Jun. If Lin Jun does not return to participate this time, then it's your loss. I can send a martial artist from the Free City to comprehend the stone tablet of Fallen Star Lake. The stone tablet was the secret of the Sacred Land. How could it be easily allowed to comprehend it? However, Jean Nua had no way to refuse. Just as she was about to grit her teeth and accept this debt, a servant suddenly came to report. Fifth young master, we still have one last martial artist to participate. Who is it? Lin Jun. He is the one who sent Michelle back. He has now arrived at the 33 Heavens Pagoda. When Jean Nua heard this, she did not bother to say anything else to Zhang Lang. She immediately left the dimensional universe. Zhang Lang and the others quickly received news of Lin Jun's return. Zhang Lang coldly snorted. He's the last person. He's also a world king. What can he do? Switch the situation to Fallen Star Lake. I want to see if this Lin Jun can still ascend to the heavens. Chapter 820. The crowd parted and watched as Lin Jun walked into the Tristrimsa Pagoda. After entering the pagoda, Jean Nua stood at the door with her hands behind her back. Fifth senior brother. Lin Jun, I only have one thing to say. Currently, our Fallen Star Lake Sacred Land does not have a single spot in the top 10. I don't want to see a situation like this. Lin Jun nodded silently. He did not say what kind of results he would achieve. He only said that he would do his best. Jean Nua did not say anything else. She was afraid of pressuring Lin Jun, so she turned and left the pagoda. There was a red lacquered door on the first floor. After opening the door, he would face the guardian of the first level. Lin Jun pushed the door open and closed it. There was a flight of stairs inside. However, there was a chair in front of the stairs. Lin Jun sat on the chair and put on the virtual reality helmet that he had prepared. Images flashed in his mind. Lin Jun entered the virtual world of the first level. Every 6 levels of the Tristrimsa Pagoda was a cycle. They were the Telekinesis Master, the Domain Warrior, the Astral Beast, the Elemental War God, the Super Swordsman, and the Master of Heaven. The first level was called Imperial Huang Xingtian. The Guardian was probably a telekinesis master. After entering, the scene before his eyes changed. Lin Jun appeared in a forest. A telekinesis master stood on top of a large tree. This telekinesis master was at the early stage of the 3-flower realm. When he saw Lin Jun, he raised his hand and several flying daggers whizzed out. He was using the Sacred Land's blade controlling technique. His moves were mysterious and unpredictable. However, Lin Jun did not have time to tangle with this telekinesis master. His mind power had just advanced to the diamond level. This level was not difficult for him. The telekinesis master was only at the middle stage of the dark gold level. Lin Jun's mind moved, and his nascent soul was released. Seeing that Lin Jun had used his nascent soul, the telekinesis master also used his nascent soul to fight. However, he did not expect Lin Jun's nascent soul to shake its spear during the battle. The diamond spear flashed and stabbed the telekinesis master's nascent soul to death. The telekinesis master howled, and his flying daggers fell to the ground. Lin Jun's main body quickly rushed forward and the spear pierced his heart. 1 second. From the beginning to the end, only 1 second had passed. Lin Jun passed the first level. With a flash of light, Lin Jun automatically passed through the stairs and entered the second level of the 33 Heavens Pagoda. On the second level, he was facing a domain warrior. Outside the pagoda, the fallen Star Lake, who had been suppressed for a long time. Lin's calm, fallen, was second of it, but Zhang did not. However, Zhang Lang and the others didn't care too much about this. Although passing the first level with a single move was good, a world king was still a world king. There was a limit to what they could do, and the further they went, the harder it would be. When the warrior saw Lin Jun, he roared. A ripple shook the space. Domain formed. The domain was a gravity field. Under the gravity, Lin Jun felt the pressure double. Roar! The warrior waved his axe. It was as if he had gone berserk. He roared and rushed over. The axe in his hand tore through space. Galaxy domain. If one wanted to fight against a domain, they would also need a domain. Lin Jun also had a domain. With just a thought, the Milky Way domain was formed. The Milky Way domain appeared, and planets appeared one after another. The Axe Warrior's path was blocked by countless stars. One by one, the stars exploded in the air. The powerful shock waves forced the Axe Warrior to retreat. Lin Jun did not want to waste time on the second level. He used shadowless steps to advance. Even though he was resisting the gravity, he was still so fast that it was dazzling. Swish, swish, swish. Lin Jun easily dodged the Axe Warrior's attacks. He used shadowless steps to appear behind his opponent. With a backhand, he pierced his opponent's heart. The powerful Axe Warrior did not fall. Instead, he swung his axe. Lin Jun used shadowless steps to appear in front of him. With another slash, his head was cut off. The Axe Warrior fell on his back. Lin Jun reached the third level. Lin Jun used 3 seconds to reach the second level. This result shocked the martial artists once again. It was understandable that he passed the first level so quickly. However, the Axe Warrior on the second level could not be attacked by God. How could it be so easy to pass? Lin Jun being able to end the battle in 3 seconds was enough to prove his strength. Lin Jun's result should be enough to reach the top 10. Not just the top 10, he should be able to reach the top 3. I don't believe that there is anyone who can defeat a warrior in 2 seconds. Incredible. Previously, I was still a little unconvinced by Lin Jun. But now, I haven't even passed the second level yet, while he cleared it in 3 seconds. The difference between me and him is as far as the distance between heaven and earth. He is only a world king. If he reaches the immortal realm, I can't imagine how far he can grow. Because Lin Jun was the last one to appear, everyone's attention was on him. Such a fast passing of the level attracted the attention of the 4 Holy Lands. Those who thought that victory was in their hands had a dignified look on their faces. In the double tree garden, Feng Qingwan stood under the swaying tree. Beside her was a girl called Zhou Zimei. Feng Qingwan was currently ranked 4th, and she was ranked 5th. Under the 2 trees, a bald cultivator wearing coarse hemp clothes sat cross-legged, his eyes slightly closed. Zhou Zimei said to Feng Qingwan, "Qingwan, is Lin Jun your boyfriend?" Feng Qingwan nodded slightly. "He is my lover. His performance is not bad. He passed the first level in 1 second and the second level in 3 seconds. I was worried about what kind of man would be good enough for you. Now, it seems that I don't have to worry about you. You'll find a good match for you." Feng Qingwan's face was slightly hot. She had only seen Lin Jun once on the Star of God's Punishment. She did not have a chance to talk to Lin Jun. She missed him very much. The Millennium Promise was coming soon. She was going to meet him. However, the appearance of the princess of the Southern Liang dynasty stimulated Feng Qingwan. She decided to not meet Lin Jun first and join the Holy Lands. Ning Qingshuan's excellence made Feng Qingwan, who was also a girl, feel threatened. She did not want to lose to anyone, especially a girl. At this time, the bald martial artist sitting under the tree suddenly said, Qingwan, it is not easy for you to get married. I think the fourth lady wants to cultivate you. Maybe you will become the fifth lady of the double tree garden in the future. Feng Qingwan's face changed. How can it be me? I think senior brother Moses is more promising. You just took the first place. The bald martial artist was Moses, who was now the first on the overall list. He looked calm and smiled kindly. Although I took the first place, Qingwan, don't forget that I have been at the peak of the three-flower realm for many years. You are just at the immortal stage. As a mutated phoenix, your talent and potential are second to none in the entire double tree garden. If you reach the peak of the three-flower realm, I am afraid that no one in the four holy lands will be your opponent except for a few people. So, you are definitely more suitable than me. Feng Qingwan was silent. Feng Fei, the fourth lady of the double tree garden, attached great importance to her. Especially when she found that she was a mutated phoenix, she spent a lot of money to get another high-level divine body that was completely compatible with her own high-level divine body. Double divine bodies and a mutated phoenix. Feng Qingwan's talent was frightening. Although Moses was currently the first in the younger generation of the double tree garden, the future still depended on Feng Qingwan. Seeing Feng Qingwan's expression, Moses smiled faintly. Junior sister, you can't let go of that Lin Jun. But in my opinion, Lin Jun might inherit the Fallen Star Lake in the future. It will be difficult for you two to be together. Zhou Zimei said, can Lin Jun defeat senior brother and take the first place on the overall list? Moses closed his eyes slightly and formed an Aquarius seal in his palm. If he can really defeat me, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes, inheriting the Fallen Star Lake is practically a done deal. From the looks of it, there might really be hope. Zhou Zimei was a little unconvinced, but I don't think senior brother has done his best. Moses shook his head slightly. So what if I have done my best? Lin Jun, he is just a world king. The third floor of the 33 Heavens Pagoda was called Qingming Hitong Tian. The guardian of this floor was the astral beast. When Lin Jun entered the third floor, he was surprised to find that the astral beast he was facing was a fire Qilin. If it was other astral beasts, Lin Jun might have to use a little more effort to defeat them. But if it was a fire Qilin, there was no problem at all. Armor transformation, metal enchantment, and fire Qilin technique. The opponent had to hold back whatever tricks he had. Relying on his copper skin and iron bones, Lin Jun defeated the astral beast without any injuries and successfully entered the fourth floor. Although this floor took more time, a full 5 minutes, to Lin Jun, it was not difficult at all. The fourth floor was called Mysterious Embryo, Flat Education Sky. The guardian was the elemental war god. The elemental war god was a martial artist who had nurtured the power of the elements to the extreme and had strong close combat abilities. However, the power of the elements was still limited to Lin Jun's lethality. Lin Jun, who was proficient in all elements, had a high resistance to the power of the elements. With the threat of the elements reduced, Lin Jun easily passed this floor. Using the sword force, he continuously used the life-severing sword technique and starfall to kill the elemental war god. The third floor took 5 minutes, which made people think that Lin Jun would not be able to achieve any results. Unexpectedly, he created another miracle on the fourth floor, ending the battle in 20 seconds. After passing the fourth floor and entering the fifth floor, he faced a super swordsman. This battle was relatively difficult. The super swordsman did not have any obvious weaknesses. His sword techniques were exquisite, and he could resist the power of the elements. Moreover, he was very strong in close combat. Lin Jun fought for another 10 minutes on this floor. In the end, he relied on his shadowless steps to pass the floor without any danger. After passing the fifth floor, Lin Jun was about to face a mini-boss, the Heavenly Master. The Heavenly Master was an astral beast that was proficient in domain, mind power, and elemental power. He was also extremely skilled in close combat. His strength was comparable to the previous 5 floors combined, and he was at the peak of the three-flower realm. Chapter 821. After entering the 6th level, he found himself in a barren desert. The sun was high in the sky, and Lin Jun looked around, but he couldn't find the heavenly master anywhere. It can't be, right? Why is there no one here? Lin Jun looked around and saw nothing but a vast wilderness. He couldn't see anyone at all. Ga. Suddenly, a bird cry rang out in the sky. Lin Jun raised his head and saw a huge bird with a wingspan of over 100 meters descending from the sky. A huge claw appeared in front of him, and as if it had teleported, it grabbed Lin Jun. Lin Jun's body was lifted into the air uncontrollably, and before he could react, the huge bird's beak came down on him. Don't even think about succeeding. Lin Jun swung his void, cleaving divine sword, displaying the life-severing sword art to its limits. When the spirit treasure grade sword slashed down, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. The huge bird didn't receive any resistance at all. Its beak landed on Lin Jun's shoulder. Black hole beast transformation. Fujin. At this critical moment, a layer of scales appeared on Lin Jun's body, blocking the attack of the heavenly master's beak. At the same time, he transformed into a huge black hole beast. After transforming, Lin Jun's Qilin mouth bit down on the bird's abdomen. The huge bird loosened its claw and flung Lin Jun away. Lin Jun's body rolled in the air, wanting to use this opportunity to use the black hole devouring technique. However, the huge bird flapped its wings and appeared beside Lin Jun again, swinging its huge wings. Lin Jun couldn't dodge in time and was slammed into the ground, smashing heavily into the yellow sand. His body had just landed when the huge bird appeared beside him again. With a wave of its claw, it flung Lin Jun into the sky again. The huge bird's beak shone with a dim light, and one could tell at a glance that it was extremely sharp. Lin Jun was doubtful that he could block this attack. No, my main body is still unable to fight against the Heaven Master. I need my clones to fight alongside me. Others thought that Lin Jun was relying on the power of medicine to be so strong, but no one realized that Lin Jun had obtained a new clone. With a thought, his doppelganger appeared in the form of a 5-elemental mutated Qilin and landed on the Heavenly Master's back. The huge mouth bit down viciously, revealing the bone in one bite. The Heavenly Master screamed in pain and turned around to deal with his doppelganger. Meanwhile, Lin Jun's main body took advantage of this opportunity to bite the Heavenly Master again, giving him another heavy blow. The Heaven Lord finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a flap of his wings, he twisted his body in the air and transformed into his human form. With a hooked nose, high cheekbones, and dark skin, this Heavenly Lord was a golden-winged rock galactic beast. The golden-winged rock galactic beast was a mutated species among the great rocks. It had the innate ability of space, and with a flap of its wings, it could travel hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Even among the galactic beasts, it was extremely powerful. Since the other party had given up on his galactic beast form, it meant that he was going to use other methods. Lin Jun didn't dare to slack off. At the same time, he transformed into his human form with his doppelganger. In any case, this was the virtual space, and he wasn't worried that others would know that he was using his doppelganger. After transforming into his human form, the golden-winged rock let out a cry and sent out a mental attack. The mental power of a peak dark gold rank was slightly weaker than Lin Jun's newly promoted diamond rank. Lin Jun immediately used his mental power to counterattack. At the same time, he had his doppelganger charge forward. Since his doppelganger had appeared, there was no need for his main body to charge at the front line. The divine infant was above, and his doppelganger was below. They both launched a counterattack against the Heavenly Master at the same time. The Heavenly Master's mental attack failed. With another cry, he activated his domain. The golden-winged rock had the storm domain. In an instant, the desert turned into hell. In Lin Jun's eyes, this violent wind had already surpassed the category of wind. At the very least, it didn't belong to a planet. It was a spatial storm that swept through the universe. Not only was there air flowing, but there was also dark matter and dark energy. In an instant, the wind speed reached 1,000 times the speed of sound. At this speed, even a wisp of air would become the sharpest knife, capable of cutting through many things. Lin Jun's divine infant instantly returned to his spiritual sea. Both his main body and doppelganger turned into armor and metal at the same time. They used their battle forms to resist the golden-winged rock's storm domain. Inside the storm, the golden-winged rock also turned into armor. Huge black wings spread out behind his back, and he moved with lightning speed. The weapons in his hands turned into two long spears. He displayed his domain and elemental power, as well as his close combat skills as a super swordsman. Super swordsman was just a synonym for close combat. It didn't mean that the Heavenly Master would definitely use a sword. His two long spears actually had 4 spearheads, and they could be stabbed from both front and back. Lin Jun was an old hand with spears, so he could tell at a glance that this weapon was called the Drunken Spear Two-Headed Snake. The Drunken Spear was extremely difficult to practice. Although its offensive power was not as strong as a great spear, its technique was much stronger than a great spear. Coupled with the advantage of speed, it was definitely an unparalleled weapon in close combat. The Heavenly Master displayed the Drunken Spear. Man and spear became one in the storm, and he was like a giant hedgehog covered in spikes. He charged forward with ghostly speed, not giving Lin Jun a suitable angle or opportunity to devour him. Lin Jun's main body brandished the Void Splitter Divine Sword while his doppelganger took out the Lance of Lantis. The two of them fought the Heavenly Master together. In this battle, Lin Jun brought out all his skills. The Shadowless Step became Lin Jun's strongest method to resist the Heavenly Master. In particular, the Shadowless Step of the 5th diagram allowed Lin Jun to not be at a disadvantage in the face of sharp attacks. 100 steps, countless variations. Lin Jun's figure danced in the storm as he calmly counterattacked. No matter how strong the Heavenly Master was, in Lin Jun's eyes, he was only at the peak of the 3-flower realm. His abilities were a bit more comprehensive, and his star force was a bit stronger. But he wasn't strong enough to instantly defeat Lin Jun. Lin Jun might be able to face the main body alone, but with the main body and avatar working together, especially with the avatar's star force reaching 10 million stars, how could the Heavenly Master win so easily? Lin Jun's main body had advanced to the 9th level of the World King realm, and his avatar had also reached the 9th level of the Longevity realm. Every level increased his star force by 5 million stars. His star force soared to 90 million stars, not much worse than the Heavenly Master's. Moreover, the main body and avatar were mentally connected, so there was no room for mistakes. Although this battle was fierce, Lin Jun was confident he could pass. Land of Spring. After a long battle, the Avatar finally found an opportunity to display Landis' spear skills. As the spear light flashed, the Earth's crust began to move. Countless Earth walls rose from the ground. These Earth walls didn't have much lethality, but under the isolation of these Earth walls, the Heavenly Master's storm domain was greatly restricted. The storm crashed into the Earth walls, breaking through layer after layer. But Lin Jun's Earth walls were nearly endless, rapidly reducing the wind speed. Without the acceleration of the wind, the Heavenly Master's speed dropped by a notch. Lin Jun's main body was finally able to track the Heavenly Master's movements. He leapt up and slashed out with his life-severing sword skills. The Heavenly Master's eyes were cold, devoid of human emotions. But he saw an opportunity. He saw a flaw in Lin Jun's main body. He accelerated and arrived in front of Lin Jun, his spear thrusting out like lightning. Spear shadows fell down. Lin Jun's sword skills changed to a defensive stance, immovable like a mountain. Ding, 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 ding. A series of sparks flew, and Lin Jun's main body was defeated. However, he was only injured and didn't die. The Avatar returned to his original position. Lantis' spear trembled. Winter of Ice. A world of ice and snow appeared behind him, and a large amount of cold air rushed toward him. The Heavenly Master felt that something was wrong. He wanted to retreat, but his feet suddenly froze. As it turned out, during the battle with Lin Jun's main body, although Lin Jun's main body was injured, he had trapped a large amount of cold air around him. This cold air couldn't affect too many things, but when it collided with the power of the Avatar's winter of ice, the cold air immediately exploded, forming a layer of ice that covered the entire space. The cold air froze the Heavenly Master's body in 0. 1 seconds. It froze him in 0. 2 seconds. It froze him in 0. 3 seconds. This short pause was fatal. Lin Jun's avatar's spear erupted, and the spear pierced through his body. The Heavenly Master tried to block with all his might, but the injured Lin Jun's main body suddenly turned around. A gravitational force pulled on one of the Heavenly Master's arms, causing his two-handed defense to be reduced to a single-handed defense. With only one hand, no three-flower realm cultivator could block the spear of Lin Jun's avatar. The instant the drunken spear, two-headed snake stopped, the avatar succeeded. After Lanta's spear was enchanted with gold, there was no way to block it. The spear pierced through the Heavenly Master's chest. "Shatter for me." The avatar shook the spear, and the 4 elemental flowers bloomed. Earth, water, fire, and wind surged, immediately turning the Heavenly Master's innards into porridge. The Heavenly Master screamed, and the spear in his hand pierced toward the throat of Lin Jun's main body. This near-death attack gave Lin Jun a fright. This kind of virtual avatar didn't fear death. Everything he did was to kill his opponent. This attack had almost succeeded. Fortunately, Lin Jun had a super divine body. A snow lotus bloomed and blocked the Heavenly Master's final attack. A mass of star energy exploded above the snow lotus. If it had pierced through, this massive star energy would have exploded inside Lin Jun's body. Even if he had a divine body, he would probably have been blown to smithereens. Lotus petals fluttered in the air. The main body and avatar stopped at the same time, their chests heaving up and down as they watched the Heavenly Master's figure slowly disappear in the air. "I won. I won." Lin Jun couldn't help but feel a strong sense of accomplishment, as well as a trace of reverence. After cultivating his avatar, Lin Jun didn't put any three-flower realm cultivators in his eyes. He believed that if he and his avatar worked together, no three-flower realm cultivator would be able to withstand a single blow. But this time, when he saw the Heavenly Master, Lin Jun was taught a lesson. The Heavenly Master of the 33 Heavens Pagoda represented the highest level of three-flower realm. At the very least, he was at the peak of the three-flower realm. Only by defeating the Heavenly Master could one be considered the king of the three-flower realm. Lin Jun had defeated the Heavenly Master, but it was a very close victory. Moreover, if there was an expert like the Heavenly Master in the real world, then he would definitely have an avatar. If he had released an avatar, could Lin Jun still win? There is always someone better than you. No matter what, I must maintain a heart of reverence. Lin Jun let out a long sigh. No matter what, he had defeated the Heavenly Master and was now ranked 5th on the overall rankings. He had surpassed Zhou Zimei of the Twin Trees Garden and completed the task given to him by Jean Nua. Chapter 822. Even if the people of the Starfall Lake Holy Land weren't willing to cheer for Lin Jun, even if they were jealous that Lin Jun, as a world king, was above them, Lin Jun was still on the list. No matter how unwilling they still had to cheer. Otherwise, if they fell into Jean Nua's eyes, she might think that they didn't care about the honor of the Holy Land and had ulterior motives. Moreover, these cheers weren't completely false. After all, if the Holy Land lost in an ugly manner, they would also lose face. Lin Jun, as a 9th level world king, was able to pass through the 6th level of a peak 3-flower world king. This in itself was a miracle, and they couldn't help but admire him. There were only 2 people who weren't cheering. One was the student of the profound class, Machina, and the other was Qian Tong, who was watching from the outside. These 2 people were Lin Jun's enemies. Even if they were beaten to death, they wouldn't cheer for Lin Jun. But no one else would. Even Jean Nua couldn't help but gently clap her hands. She was clearly very satisfied with Lin Jun's performance. Michelle's absence due to her injuries left Jean Nua feeling very regretful. But Lin Jun's sudden appearance could make up for a part of this. At the very least, the Starfall Lake Holy Land didn't lose any points. Moreover, Lin Jun wasn't at the bottom. After defeating the World King, he would be ranked 5th, which was also relatively high. Moreover, after passing through the 6th level, Zhang Lang would be considered to have lost. Jin Nuo and Zhang Lang made a bet. As long as Lin Jun passed through the 3rd level, there would be a reward. If he passed through the 5th level, there would be a Heaven Shift stone tablet. The 6th and 7th levels were discussed with Zhang Lang after Jin Nuo had a discussion with Lin Jun. After clearing the 6th level, the 3 stone tablets that Zhang Lang would open to Lin Jun must all be from the Heaven class. Lin Jun could choose one of them. This reward was quite good. She only hoped that that brat Zhang Lang wouldn't be too evil and give Lin Jun 3 useless stone tablets to choose from. If Lin Jun managed to clear the 7th floor, then she would be able to pick any stone tablet of the Free City's sacred land. That would be the best option. But Jin Nuo didn't even think about the 7th level. This was because the guardian of the 7th level was a divine transformation realm spirit reader. The divine transformation realm was divided into 3 stages: divine world transformation, God world transformation, and Godstone transformation. When these 3 boundaries were added together, they were called the divine transformation. The guardian of the 7th floor was a telekinesis master at the initial stage of the spiritual force transformation stage. Although the spiritual force transformation stage was only 1 level away from the 3-flower realm, this step was like heaven and earth. This was because after the spiritual force transformation, a martial artist's body would have something that belonged to a god. Strictly speaking, it no longer belonged to the category of a martial artist. The powerful 3 flowers might have a glimmer of hope to challenge divine perception, but since the creation of the primordial realm, no one had ever heard of a realm king challenging a divine perception. At the very least, Jin Nuo had never heard of it. She had never heard of it from her teacher, nor had she seen it in any records. That was impossible. Therefore, from Jin Nuo's point of view, Lin Jun would be eliminated very soon after entering the 7th level. His progress could not possibly surpass Feng Qingwan of the Twin Trees Garden. Speaking of Feng Qingwan, Jin Nuo also felt that this woman was definitely not a fish in a pond. To be able to fight to this extent at the longevity realm, it was very likely that she would inherit the mantle of the Twin Trees Garden in the future and become the guardian of the Holy Land. If it were in the past, Jin Nuo might have been jealous of Feng Fei's good fortune. However, after seeing Lin Jun, she felt a little better. Perhaps she did not need to wait for tens of millions of years. Perhaps within 1,000,000 years, Lin Jun would be able to replace her and completely liberate her. Jin Nuo's heart was in the endless sea of stars. Lin Jun, do your best. When you come out later, I will personally celebrate for you. Jin Nuo thought to herself. In the soul-locking platform Holy Land, Feng Dao was silent for a while. Then he said to the martial artists of the Holy Land, "All of you have to work harder. You usually brag about being a genius, but what is the standard of a genius? It is a leapfrog challenge. Lin Jun can challenge a peak 3-flower realm master as a realm king. Which one of you can do that?" The geniuses lowered their heads. Leapfrogging 1.5 levels was possible, but leapfrogging 2 levels was really too difficult. In the Twin Tree Garden Holy Land, Moses slowly opened his eyes. There wasn't any surprise in them. As I thought, Lin Jun is definitely the future successor of the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land. Junior apprentice, Sister Qingwan, you have good eyesight to have chosen such a person. Feng Qingwan secretly clenched her fists. Lin Jun, you have to surpass my results. In Free City Holy Land, Zhang Lang's complexion wasn't too good. This Lin Jun really has some skill. He was actually able to defeat a Heaven Master. It looks like I underestimated him before. This time, that brat Jin Nuo tricked me. It looks like I'll have to choose 3 Heaven Shift stone tablets for Lin Jun to meditate on. I can't choose one that is too suitable for him, lest that brat soars to the heavens in the future and steal away the limelight of our free city. Zhang Lang pondered over what stone tablet he should choose for Lin Jun. In his opinion, it was impossible for Lin Jun to pass the 7th level, so he had to choose the stone tablet himself. Zhonglang wasn't the only one who thought so. Most people thought so too. Passing the 6th level and the 7th level were two completely different concepts. No matter how talented Lin Jun was, he would stop here. Lin Jun, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. After passing the 6th floor, he was more relaxed about the 7th floor. Winning or losing wasn't particularly important. Only with such a mindset could he unleash his best strength. The scene in front of him changed, and Lin Jun arrived in a void. The gravity of the ground was very strong. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible to stop in the void. Only the feet could control objects. Lin Jun once again turned the baleful light into a shield and stepped on it. Although the baleful light wasn't a treasure, it had the advantage of being soft. It could change shape at will and wouldn't shatter. It was very useful to step on. Stepping on the baleful light, Lin Jun slowly moved forward. The surrounding was a void. He couldn't see the ground below, and he couldn't see the stars above. He couldn't see the sky or the ground. There was nothing else. Lin Jun walked in the void, completely unaware of where the enemy was. Just as he was wondering, a chuckle came from the sky. Ho ho! A mere world king dares to challenge a god? You really overestimate your abilities. Who is it? Lin Jun was shocked. In the first 6 levels, the enemy was completely like a robot. They didn't speak, nor did they have any emotions. How come the 7th level had changed? I am the guardian of the 7th level's void, Yu Hung Sky. Little ant, it's been hard on you to come here. Now, I will let you experience the power of a god. God's impact. In the void, a mental attack appeared out of nowhere. This mental attack was colorless and formless. It directly struck Lin Jun's spiritual sea. Even with Lin Jun's eyes, he only saw a flash of diamond light. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his head, as if he had been pierced by countless needles. He fell from the sky. This time, Lin Jun saw the ground. On the ground, there was a terrifying river of steel lava. The river wasn't water, but roaring waves of steel. This was molten iron that had been melted by a powerful firepower. Its temperature had reached an inconceivable degree. Seeing Lin Jun fall, the lava rose into the air, as if it wanted to swallow Lin Jun. Although Lin Jun didn't fear fire, this steel lava gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. The sharp metal energy combined with the firepower was enough to skin him alive. Resisting the pain in his head, Lin Jun mobilized his mental strength. He stepped on the shield and rose into the air once more, narrowly avoiding the invasion of the steel lava. The heat wave brushed past him. Lin Jun glided through the air and rose into the air. Just as he rose into the air, a sneer came from the sky once more. What an ant struggle. But I like watching ants crawl on a hot pan. You want to run, but you have nowhere to run. Little fellow, I'll play with you for a bit. God's impact. Another wave of mental strength attack came, and Lin Jun's spiritual sea was hit once again. In his spiritual sea, there was only a little bit of diamond rank mental strength on the tip of the divine infant spear. More than 99% of it was still dark gold rank. Lin Jun's dark gold rank mental strength couldn't withstand the attack of the opponent's diamond rank mental strength at all. The pain came again, and Lin Jun cried out. His body immediately tumbled down again. No, I can't fall into the steel flood. Otherwise, I'll be eliminated. Lin Jun forcefully mobilized his mental strength and rose into the air again when the steel flood came. A gush of molten iron slid past his ankle, causing his clothes and skin to fester instantly. Fortunately, his body dodged it, so Lin Jun wasn't eliminated. Huh, what a tenacious little fellow. But what's the point of your struggle? You can't even detect my presence. You can only be hit by my god's impact. You can dodge it once, but can you dodge it 10 times? As long as you don't fall, I'll keep hitting you. God's impact. The third mental strength attack came again. Lin Jun didn't fall for it immediately this time. When the opponent was talking, Lin Jun judged when the opponent was going to attack based on the rhythm of his breathing and the pause in his tone. When Lin Jun sensed that the opponent was going to attack, he decisively activated time deceleration. Deceleration. A small time field appeared around Lin Jun. It was only a thin layer. The time field couldn't completely stop the mental strength attack. The speed of the opponent's attack was still very, very fast, but did slow it down a little. Based on this little bit of deceleration, Lin Jun sensed the direction of the opponent's attack. The left side of his mind, which was at a 45-degree angle, was the first to bear the brunt of the opponent's mental strength attack. Although his body was still in extreme pain and his body was still falling, Lin Jun's face showed a hint of joy. This was because he'd already found the opponent's location with this attack. Chapter 823. Lin Jun wasn't dejected at all after being struck down by God's impact for the third time. Lin Jun didn't care even if the steel torrent corroded his other leg to the bone. After relieving his headache, Lin Jun rose into the air again. Huh, pitiful ant, you'll never know the difference between you and the gods. What a sad and lamentable thing you're doing. You're Lin Jun, right? Let me send you on your way again. You'll be turned into ashes by the steel torrent. God's impact. Lin Jun's mind was calm as the other party spoke. Clearly, the guardian of the 7th level was different from the previous 6 levels. It had intelligence and knew how to use psychological tactics. It knew how to taunt and make its opponents will collapse. Once the opponents will collapsed, it would be easier for it to win. Lin Jun knew that he wasn't a match for a Divine Transformation Realm opponent, but he also believed that he wouldn't collapse at the first blow. The other party's God's impact was unpredictable and couldn't be found. There was no way to win a battle like this. Lin Jun had to break through the other party's attack first. Diamond level spiritual attack. I have one too. The other party's position hadn't changed, which meant that the spiritual attack was coming from the same direction. When Lin Jun sensed the other party's attack again, he decisively released his divine infant. The mini Lin Jun, in his spiritual sea, brandished his spear and charged out. He pointed the spear in his hand and stabbed it into the void. The diamond on the tip of the spear shone like a star. This was the spear that broke the imbalance of the battle. It was the spear that represented hope. Whoa! There was no sound of metal colliding. There were only 2 waves of spiritual power colliding not far from Lin Jun's ears. The ripples were like water droplets falling into a calm lake, creating ripples. It wasn't earth-shattering, but it was still a miracle. Lin Jun couldn't help but reveal an expression of joy. Success. I blocked it. I blocked God's impact. The voice in the void was still echoing endlessly. Impossible. How is this possible? You're only a mere 9th level world king. How can you block my divine impact? How can you have diamond level spiritual power? Lin Jun laughed. Existence is the truth. You don't even understand this truth. So what qualifications do you have to boast shamelessly about being a god? If a god is like you, then it's too easy to be a god. No, I don't believe that it's just a coincidence this time. You won't be so lucky next time. I'm going to keep trying until I knock you down into the steel lava river. Lin Jun's expression turned cold. Unfortunately, you won't have such a chance. 7th floor's guardian, reveal yourself. While speaking, Lin Jun suddenly transformed into a black hole beast. The gigantic black hole beast opened its mouth and a river of stars, and a terrifying black hole appeared in its throat. Black hole storm. Devour. In a virtual world, Lin Jun could use black hole storm. It had no effect on the real world. His current star force had reached 52 million stars. As long as one star force was below 104 million stars, they wouldn't be able to block his swallowing strike. Lin Jun even thought that if this guardian star force didn't exceed 100 million stars, then this strike would have ended the battle. But reality proved that he was overthinking things. If one was able to enter the Divine Transformation Realm, it was impossible for their star force to be below 100 million stars. Even though this guardian was only an early-stage spiritual force telekinesis master, his star power was still over 100 million. Clearly, it had exceeded the number of 104 million. Lin Jun's attack did not manage to swallow the opponent. But this guardian wasn't without pressure. He didn't think that Lin Jun would be able to find his exact position. Thus, he didn't guard against Lin Jun's black hole swallowing skill. The result of this was that he had no choice but to reveal himself and forcefully resist the pulling power of the black hole storm. In the void, The terrifying black hole ripples spread out in circles under the push of the naked singularity. In the middle of the black hole ripples, a plain-looking person wearing a green robe appeared. As the black hole ripples pulled, his body emitted a layer of faint silver light that resisted the pulling power of the black hole. He stood motionless in the void. From Lin Jun's angle, he could even see a long red bar above the Guardian's head. Lin Jun knew that this red bar was the Guardian's so-called life value. As long as he could empty this red bar, the Guardian would die without a doubt and pass this level. Lin Jun liked this method. At least he could know how effective his battle was. Resisting Lin Jun's black hole storm wasn't without consumption for this Guardian. His red bar had been reduced by almost 10%. Spirit Reader, mental force is also a part of life force. Is it hard for you to resist this black hole storm? Then let me ease your pain a little. Doppelganger, go. With a thought, Lin Jun's doppelganger flew out from his inner world. It waved the lance of Lantis in its hand, turned into a stream of light, and charged straight at the Guardian. The Guardian's face was ashen, revealing a human-like expression. Arrogant and ignorant scoundrel, you've really angered me. You've angered the gods. Then prepare to die at the hands of the gods. This hateful black hole, break for me. The Guardian waved its hands, and star power finally erupted, forcibly breaking Lin Jun's black hole devour. Lin Jun's most powerful move only reduced 10% of his opponent's life force. However, this had already caused extreme shock in the outside world. Because Lin Jun was the last one, everyone was paying attention to his battle. Although it couldn't be broadcasted, they could see Lin Jun's progress. When the black hole devour ended, it showed that Lin Jun had completed 15%. Although this result was still fifth, it was still incomparably shocking. A mere world king was actually able to injure a super martial artist of the divine will transformation. What kind of world king was this? Jean Nua's hands unconsciously clenched into fists because she saw hope here. Lin Jun had rich battle experience against spirit readers. Spirit readers mainly relied on their mental power, and they weren't very good at close combat. If it was a high-level martial artist in the real world, this rule wouldn't apply. This was because high-level martial artists were basically spirit readers, and they didn't have any obvious weaknesses in battle. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to reach where they were now. However, the Guardian of the 33 Heavens Pagoda was different. Apart from the Heavenly Lord, who was a mini-boss on every 6th floor, the others were relatively simple. This telekinesis master was a pure telekinesis master, a diamond-level telekinesis master. Even if he had over 100 million star power, his close combat was definitely not as good as his mental power. Therefore, what Lin Jun needed to do was to get close to him. After the Guardian broke through the black hole devour, Lin Jun's doppelganger decisively attacked. Because there was still some distance between them, the doppelganger's attack was the Qilin cannon. It opened its mouth, and a thick beam of light broke through the air and blasted towards the Guardian in the sky. Lin Jun's doppelganger had 90 million star power, the 4 elemental flowers, and the Lance of Lantis. This was definitely a super weapon. The Qilin cannon fired at full power was shockingly powerful. However, this wasn't enough to pose any threat to the Guardian. A disdainful sneer appeared on his face. Your attacks are decent, but it's a pity that you can't hit your target. That's completely useless. As the beam of light was about to hit its body, the Guardian stepped aside slightly. The Qilin cannon had missed. However, it was still too early to be complacent. Although it had easily dodged the Qilin cannon, it hadn't expected that a destructive thunder would follow closely behind it. This was something Lin Jun had been preparing for a long time. The Qilin cannon couldn't possibly hit its opponent. If it had hit so easily, then its opponent wouldn't have been worthy of the divine will transformation. His plan was to use the Qilin cannon's strong light as a cover to cover the Black Thunder. After staying in the Fire Kirin for 10 months, Lin Jun had recovered a destructive thunder. Although it was only one, it could be used at the most critical moment. The destructive power of the destructive thunder was even greater than that of the Qilin cannon. By the time the Guardian reacted, the destructive thunder was already in front of him. Even a real god might not be able to dodge it, let alone the Guardian. The only thing the Guardian could do was to activate a spiritual shield to resist Lin Jun's attack. The combination of 3 destructive thunder was Lin Jun's most powerful killing move. Even if it was a single shot, it could still destroy a defensive spiritual treasure. It wasn't something that could be blocked so easily. Crack! Thunder from a clear sky. Ever since Lin Jun had entered the 7th level, the Guardian had been acting high and mighty. It was as if Lin Jun was an ant. He didn't take Lin Jun seriously at all. However, this bolt of lightning had smashed his elegance, his nobility, and his insufferably arrogant attitude into the dust. Although the spiritual shield had been broken and the destructive power of the destructive thunder had been greatly reduced, the Guardian was still injured. A dark electric snake danced on his body for a while. His green robe had already been damaged. Most importantly, there was a line of blood slowly dripping from his forehead. Patter! The blood landed on his shoes. The Guardian slowly raised his head. His eyes flashed with extreme anger. Moreover, the red bar on his head had been reduced by 25% after being swallowed by the black hole and the destructive thunder. The 2 consecutive attacks had taken away a quarter of his life force. Lin Jun's doppelganger didn't continue to charge. Instead, it occupied a position in the void. Lin Jun's original body was in another direction. They were in a triangular position. At this distance, they could enter a state of close combat at any time. This was the effect Lin Jun hoped to achieve. Chapter 824. After 2 consecutive strikes, Lin Jun didn't relax at all. In a situation where he couldn't use the Divine Power Pill, the Black Hole, Beast Transformation, and Annihilation Thunder were Lin Jun's trump cards. Even so, after using them all, he had only shaved off a quarter of his opponent's HP. From this, one could see just how powerful the Divine Transformation was. The Guardian was clearly enraged by Lin Jun. It was programmed to have emotions, so it naturally had emotions. Being injured by a world king like Lin Jun was unforgivable in its eyes. Brat, you're courting death. The Guardian bellowed, finally going berserk. 10 throwing knives rose from behind a Guardian. The combat techniques of a spiritualist had finally appeared. A shuttle-shaped shield shuttled through the air. The 10 throwing knives crisscrossed, creating a certain distance between the Guardian and Lin Jun. The Guardian's control over the 10 throwing knives had reached perfection. Under the Guardian's control, 5 throwing knives attacked Lin Jun's main body, while the other 5 attacked his doppelganger. Because of the Black Hole, Beast Transformation, and Annihilation Thunder, Lin Jun had thought that the Divine Transformation wasn't particularly strong. But now, he realized how wrong he had been. Under the suppression of the opponent's throwing knives, Lin Jun didn't have the slightest ability to counterattack. The throwing knives crisscrossed back and forth at the speed of light, not giving Lin Jun the slightest opportunity. After the doppelganger's scales were enchanted with gold, it wanted to forcefully attack. But the opponent's 5 throwing knives actually combined into a large saber. The saber slashed through the air, sending the doppelganger flying back. Unable to increase his speed, Lin Jun's main body and doppelganger could only lean against each other, using immovable mountain to defend against the throwing knives. But as a result, Lin Jun had no chance of winning. The opponent's god's impact continued to arrive from time to time. This sort of combat technique, which used both throwing knives and mental attacks, was simply impossible to defend against. A single person could easily trap Lin Jun's main body and doppelganger to death. This was the strength of the Divine Transformation. The flying dagger turned into rays of light and flickered nonstop. Lin Jun's main body and doppelganger were constantly adding wounds to their bodies. This can't go on. If I can't fight in close combat, I won't be able to fight back. I've underestimated the Divine Telekinesis Transformation. Although he's only an early-stage telekinesis master, he's much stronger than a 3-flower realm cultivator. If it had been a 3-flower realm cultivator, Lin Jun would have been able to beat him if he joined forces with his clone. Now, however, he was the one being beaten. Seeing that he was about to fall into a hopeless situation, Lin Jun made up his mind to go all out. Cover them. I'll go. Lin Jun's main body and doppelganger moved at the same time. After the doppelganger's body was enchanted with gold, the lance of Lantis spun around like a windmill, paving the way ahead. Meanwhile, the main body blossomed like a lotus flower, following closely behind the doppelganger. Ding ding dang dang dang. The flying daggers flew over, and the doppelganger found it extremely difficult to advance. Huh. Do you think you still have a chance to attack when I'm serious about this battle? I'll let you know the true strength of the divine transformation realm. The Guardian revealed a haughty expression once more. He pointed his finger into the air, and the flying daggers shined brightly. Puff, puff, puff. The doppelganger's scales met its nemesis for the first time after being enchanted with gold. The dazzling flying daggers pierced through them one by one. If it were an ordinary martial artist, this series of attacks would have taken their life. Lin Jun's doppelganger desperately tried to resist. The impact was weakened bit by bit, and blood gushed out from his wounds. The Guardian revealed a cruel smile. It was as if his fingers were fiddling with a string of remote-controlled flying daggers. The power of each dagger was astonishing. It was a wanton attack. I won't accept this. The doppelganger screamed as his body tumbled down. Before he died, he shot out a string of Qilin spears. Then, the doppelganger disappeared into the clouds, heading straight for the torrent of steel below. The Guardian raised his hand, and a spiritual barrier appeared once more. The Qilin spears struck the barrier, but they weren't able to break it at all. Ignorant Junior, you've lost your doppelganger. Is your main body still going to struggle? Lin Jun didn't respond. Lotus flowers bloomed from his body as he clenched his teeth and held on. Those dazzling flying daggers came flying at him once more. Lin Jun roared out, "I'll fight you to the death." Star Force erupted. A giant lotus flower bloomed from Lin Jun's body, forcefully blocking the flying daggers. Then, he shot towards the Guardian like a cannonball. Let's end this. The Guardian's face turned cold. He brought his hands together, and the 10 flying daggers gathered together, turning into a giant saber that came chopping down. Limitless sword art. Lin Jun was never one to resign himself to death. In this life or death moment, the limitless sword art erupted. This was an ultimate skill that came from the soul-locking altar. The limitless sword art had 4 styles. This style was called Abyss. Saber and sword collided. The Guardian's 10 flying daggers were actually defeated. Lin Jun finally made use of this attack to close in on the Guardian. Although the Guardian was surprised by the strength of Lin Jun's sword, he was still at the divine transformation realm, so he didn't panic. Do you think a spirit reader is weak? That depends on who you're compared to. A spirit reader at the divine realm is enough to crush you. The Guardian released Star Force from his palms and blocked Lin Jun's sword with one hand. He was prepared to let the flying daggers shoot out again. This time, he had to cut Lin Jun into 8 pieces. At this time, Lin Jun was wide open. He wanted to chop down with both hands, but the Guardian blocked it with one hand. The two were less than 3 meters apart. The flying daggers circled around. If anything happened in any other direction, the flying daggers would immediately intercept it. This was a spirit reader's tactic, watertight, and things always happened in unexpected places. A spear pierced through Lin Jun's abdomen. Lance of Lantis. Winter's eyes. The spear pierced through Lin Jun's abdomen. At the same time, it pierced through Lin Jun and the Guardian. Puff! Ugh! The Guardian spat out a mouthful of blood and stopped his attack. He was a pure spirit reader, so he was very familiar with the battle of spirit readers. There was no place in the sky that he could use, so he could use his strong spirit power to his heart's content. He calculated everything, but he didn't expect that Lin Jun would use such an extreme method. The doppelganger had no life. Even if it was hit, it wouldn't die. He knew this, so he was on guard. But he didn't expect that the doppelganger would pierce through his body and use his body to block his vision. The doppelganger's star force covered his spirit's sense, so that the doppelganger could launch a thunderous attack. Frost bloomed on his wound and instantly froze the blood flowing out. The red bar on the Guardian's head dropped to 50%. The Guardian's life points didn't drop for a long time, so people knew that the battle was about to end. Lin Jun must be holding on by force. This kind of support wouldn't last long, but they didn't expect that Lin Jun would actually give the Guardian another critical hit. 50% completion on the 7th floor. This result surpassed Feng Qingwan and tied with Lu Yunfei from the soul-locking altar for 3rd place. The most important thing was that Lin Jun still hadn't been eliminated. There were only 2 people ahead of him. One was Xiao Lai from the Freedom City with 65% completion, and the other was Moses from the Twin Tree Garden with 90% completion. Lin Jun, work a little harder, and you'll take 3rd place. Jean Nual whispered, but his fingers were moving slightly. He even hoped that Lin Jun could create a bigger miracle, but he didn't dare to expect too much. The Guardian went crazy. After being hit by Lin Jun's sneak attack, he actually howled to the sky. Those flying daggers no longer had any defensive actions. They all burst out of diamond light and stabbed back and forth crazily. After Lin Jun's doppelganger succeeded in its attack, the first thing it did was to protect its main body. The doppelganger's doppelganger was riddled with holes, and it floated down like a rag doll. This time, it had completely lost its ability to fight. A wave of the steel magma river rolled and engulfed the doppelganger. The main body was protected by the doppelganger, so this wave of attacks could be considered to have survived. Bastard. Damn bastard. Killing you like this is too easy for you. I want to cut you into pieces alive. The Guardian shouted. A ray of spirit power with diamond light flew out and turned into a long rope in the air. It went straight to Lin Jun to wrap around him. Lin Jun's sky-slashing divine sword and sword aura attacked continuously, but he couldn't cut this spirit power rope. His expression changed drastically. He wanted to use teleportation to leave, but the other party's spirit attack directly interrupted him. Bang! The long rope was like a python, binding Lin Jun tightly in the air. He couldn't move at all. The Guardian walked over slowly. The huge wound on his abdomen was still bleeding. His cold gaze fell on Lin Jun's face. He raised his hand, and a flying dagger was directly caught in his hand. Lin Jun, can you still resist? I'll cripple your resistance bit by bit now, so that you can no longer pose any threat to me. When you're completely desperate, I'll kill you. Before he finished speaking, the Guardian raised his dagger and slashed down. Lin Jun's left hand was chopped off. Your hands can hold a sword and release sword aura. This is a threat to me. I want to get rid of this threat completely. His right hand was chopped off again. This is the price you have to pay. This is the price you have to pay for trying to attack a god. How can you wield your sword after losing your hands? How can you pick up your spear? Your body is very tough and strong. I just don't know if you can still revive after being chopped up by me. The Guardian's dagger stabbed into Lin Jun's chest once more. My dagger will cut off the blood supply to your heart. You will soon feel weak, dizzy, and weak. But don't worry, this isn't the end. After cutting off the blood supply to your heart, I will continue to destroy your eyes, ears, dantian, sea of energy, and spiritual sea. You will die without a grave. Oh, that's right. Also, I will make you hallucinate so that you can feel the true end of the world. After you die, your body will rot away, eaten by wild dogs, and you'll turn into the most humble dirt. This is the price you have to pay for blaspheming a god. Another dagger came stabbing down. Lin Jun closed his eyes. He couldn't even feel where this dagger had pierced. Even so, it didn't matter where it had pierced. At this time, he simply didn't have the ability to resist. A divine transformation realm martial artist was so powerful. He couldn't use his space-slashing sword. He couldn't use his dual sword aura. He couldn't use his soul force. His avatar had died, and he had used up all of his ultimate moves. What else could he do? This Guardian claimed to be a god, but Lin Jun didn't recognize him as a god. A divine transformation realm martial artist was at best a false divinity. They couldn't even be considered a demigod. Even if you were a god, I will not give up on fighting. Since there are gods, they will also die. Lin Jun's thoughts lingered in his mind. At this time, he seemed to have realized something. Chapter 825. At this moment, Lin Jun recalled the instructor, namely Mo, when he was studying in the dojo. He had learned sword intent from Liemo and still remembered the true essence of sword intent. There was no sword in the hand, but there was a sword in the heart. However, after comprehending sword intent, where did the sword come from? Lin Jun opened his eyes slightly. He did not look at the ferocious guardian opposite him. Instead, he looked at his hands. He no longer had his hands, nor did he have the sword intent in his hands. He could no longer slash the air. Didn't this mean that he had no sword in his hand? Since there was no sword in his hand, then his sword was in his heart. Since it was in his heart, then it could be used at any time. The guardian on the other side was torturing Lin Jun, but this half-dead man suddenly had a vigorous aura rise from his body. Lin Jun's entire being was like a bound sword, ready to break free and explode at any moment. At this moment, the guardian instinctively felt that something was amiss. He no longer cared about playing with Lin Jun. With a wave of his hands, 2 throwing knives appeared in his hands. He slashed at Lin Jun's neck from left and right. Even if he had the undying spirit body, he would probably be finished if his head was chopped off. Lin Jun raised his head and roared. Invisible Heart's sword. Chi, 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 chi. Sword chi spewed out from his body like a red sun rising from the sea of clouds. Tens of thousands of rays of light shone, and even some demons and monsters had to retreat. The guardian covered his eyes and shouted as he retreated. Clang! An invisible sword cut off the rope that bound him. Gods also have life and death. In this universe, there is nothing that is immortal, even if you are a god. Tomb of the Gods. The sword intent around him stirred up his aura. This invisible sword slashed out under Lin Jun's direction. Space lock. All the stellar energy was concentrated on this sword that could seize the fortune of heaven and earth. The guardian did not even have time to react before he saw a sword flash pass by. A blood-red thread gradually extended in front of his eyes, and his HP bar was emptied. Space collapsed, and light flashed before his eyes. Lin Jun entered the 8th level of Tai Chi Heaven. The 4 holy lands were completely silent. Everyone looked at the screen in disbelief. Lin Jun's progress had reached the 8th floor. F*CK. No way. Am I seeing things? Is this for real? How did Lin Jun defeat the spiritual force transformation? Unbelievable. Cheating. There must be some sort of cheating involved. The people from Fallen Star Lake must have done something. Boss Zhang Lang, you have to investigate this thoroughly. Zhang Lang let out a deep breath and shook his head. It's impossible to cheat. No matter who it is, they won't be able to do anything in the 33 Heavens Pagoda. I can only say that we have underestimated this Lin Jun. His gaze fell on the first place on the leaderboard. The 2 words Lin Jun were so dazzling. I hope Lin Jun won't choose a stone tablet that's too good to comprehend. I really didn't expect that he would actually lose to Jin Nuo. The Holy Land of Fallen Star Lake has a successor. Asterisk, 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 asterisk in the Twin Tree Garden. Feng Qingwan's face was flushed red due to excitement. Zhou Zimei said with some jealousy, Qingwan, your man is really good. He actually managed to pass the 7th floor and even suppress senior brother Moses. Without waiting for Feng Qingwan to reply, Moses said, Zimei, don't take victory and defeat too seriously. The 4 holy lands are like branches of the same tree. There are often competitions. If you lose your composure every time you lose, wouldn't it be too tiring? Josime blushed and didn't say anything else. Lin Jun didn't do much on the 8th floor. His opponent on this floor was an early-stage spiritual force transformation realm warrior. His strength was ridiculously strong. Moreover, he wasn't as flashy as the spirit reader on the 7th floor. His attacks were ruthless and decisive. Lin Jun had lost his doppelganger. He couldn't use the black hole beast transformation and didn't have the thunder of destruction. He couldn't defend against his opponent. 1%. With a completion rate of 1%, Lin Jun was eliminated. Of course, this was also related to the fact that he didn't go all out. However, even if he did, the result wouldn't be good. That was enough. Lin Jun was completely satisfied to be able to defeat the Guardian on the 7th floor. He also knew his current situation. If the spirit reader on the 7th floor had gone all out from the start, Lin Jun wouldn't have had a chance. All kinds of coincidences allowed Lin Jun to comprehend something in a virtual environment. Through the stimulation of sword intent, he condensed an invisible sword and comprehended God's tomb, turning the tables in one blow. At this time, Lin Jun knew why the last move of the Taiyuan sword technique was called God's tomb. This move was invented to fight against opponents of the divine transformation realm. After learning God's tomb, this move was Lin Jun's greatest comprehension. However, Lin Jun's perception of sword intent and invisible sword was still very vague, especially after he left the 33 Heavens Pagoda and left the virtual environment. His body had returned to normal and there were no injuries. His avatar was still there and the Annihilation Thunder was still there. At this time, he was unable to grasp the invisible sword. Faintly, Lin Jun could feel that the heart sword was the true profoundness of sword skills. It was no longer restricted to weapons. But in the virtual environment, the feeling of being forced out of desperation and returning to normal was difficult to grasp. It doesn't matter. Since I've already comprehended the heart sword for the first time, there will definitely be a next time. After a few more times, I'll definitely be able to grasp this move. At this time, Lin Jun knew that his attainments in sword skills had already surpassed Limo's. He had already glimpsed upon the gates of the Great Tao. At this point, the 4 Holy Lands' 33 Heavens Pagoda challenges had all come to an end. Lin Jun became the #1 new student of the 4 Holy Lands and ascended to the top of the rankings. The #1 new student was naturally the #1 of the Earth class. Lin Jun directly entered the Heaven class and was ranked #1 of the new students of the Heaven class. However, there weren't too many people cheering here. It wasn't a big deal to have a #1 in every competition. Most of the students immediately chose to cultivate after seeing this. Lin Jun's valiant performance had also stimulated them. Instead, it had stimulated their desire to strive for the top. Jean Nuo personally rewarded Lin Jun with 2 divine stones. Divine stones could be used to buy some very good things and could also be used to save one's life. Lin Jun hadn't thought of what to do with these 2 divine stones for the time being. At the same time, Jean Nuo also announced that Lin Jun had become a Heaven class student. In the future, he could go to the Heaven class to comprehend. Originally, they thought that the Pagoda of 33 Heavens would end here. Unexpectedly, after the crowd dispersed, Jean Nuo asked Lin Jun to stay. Lin Jun, your performance this time was very good. It was so good that it exceeded my expectations. Now, let me tell you something. Regarding your results, I have a bet with Freedom City's Holy Land's Heaven class guard, Zhonglang. One of the terms is that if you can pass through the 7th level of the Pagoda of 33 Heavens, you can choose any stone tablet in the Freedom City's Heaven class to comprehend. Oh, I can choose as I wish? Lin Jun's eyes instantly lit up. Yes, you can choose as you wish. However, Lin Jun, you'd better be careful. You should know that the information of the 4 Holy Land stone tablets is not connected to each other. This is an extremely rare opportunity for you. If you choose a stone tablet that is not suitable for you, it would be a waste. Lin Jun thought for a moment. 5th senior brother, do you have anything to teach me? Jean Nuo shook her head slightly. Although I really want to tell you some choices, you must complete them yourself. As a Holy Lands guard, I cannot help you cheat. Lin Jun also knew that Jean Nuo would not help him cheat. He was just casually asking. When he heard this news, Lin Jun actually already had a choice. Thank you, 5th senior brother. I think I've already made my choice. Oh, then tell me. I'll ask Zhonglang to listen as well. Jean Nuo raised her hand, and a screen appeared out of thin air. A valiant young man in black appeared on the screen. He was somewhat arrogant, but more than that, he was unfathomable, just like Jean Nuo. Jean Nuo, has your Lin Jun made his choice? You didn't leak any information, did you? Of course. Until now, I still don't know what Lin Jun will choose. To be fair, I'll ask you to listen as well. All right, let me listen to this year's genius student. What choice will the #1 freshman, Lin Jun, make? Do you want me to show you the names of the Heaven class's stone tablets? No need. I choose the limitless sword technique. Lin Jun went straight to the point and directly stated his choice. Ji Nuo was stunned for a moment. Finally, she could not help but say, Lin Jun, the limitless sword technique is not bad, but this sword technique is made up of 4 forms. Each of the 4 holy lands has a stone tablet. If you can't learn all 4 forms, this sword technique is not much stronger than other sword techniques. Don't you want to consider it? Zhang Lang hurriedly stopped Ji Nuo. Hey, Ji Nuo, watch your words and actions. Since Lin Jun has made his choice, this matter must be confirmed. You are not allowed to play any tricks. Lin Jun smiled at Ji Nuo. 5th senior brother, it's okay. Our Fallen Star Lake's Heaven class has a stone tablet for the limitless sword technique. If I learn the Freedom Cities, won't I have 2 forms? The power of 2 forms of the limitless sword technique is not small. Ji Nuo thought for a moment. Yes, I heard that if you learn 1 more form of the limitless sword technique, its power will double. However, you'd better not think too much. Everyone knows that you have learned 2 forms of the limitless sword technique. Whether it's Feng Fei from the Twin Trees Garden or Feng Dao from the Soul Locking platform, they will definitely not give you the chance to come into contact with the limitless sword technique. 5th senior brother, I understand. Don't worry, this is my choice. Ji Nuo sighed slightly. All right, since you have made your choice, I won't interfere. Zhang Lang, send the information of your stone tablets to Lin Jun. Zhang Lang nodded. Lin Jun's choice of the limitless sword technique was not the best choice in his opinion. However, he naturally would not let Lin Jun change his mind. He added Lin Jun as a friend in the dimensional universe and sent the information of the limitless sword technique over. After obtaining the Freedom City's limitless sword technique, Lin Jun bade farewell to Ji Nuo. 5th senior brother, I'm going to cultivate.